And neither one of those guys are lighting the world on fire at the minor league level. You look at a guy like Cody Sedlock, and I believe his ERA at this point in the season is above 6 at the minor league level, which leaves much to be desired. This is a former first-round pick. His ERA right now, he's 2-1 with a 5.83 ERA in 29 in the third innings pitched, a 1.47 whip. Now, you like the 35 strikeouts in 29 in the third innings, but his career minor league stats, just 17 and 19 in 96 games with a 4.48 ERA and a 1.44 whip. And the thing about Cody Sedlock, what has he really done to deserve being thrust into this role for the Orioles today? And then Denny Reyes, I know that he just came over here on a waiver claim not that long ago. But what has Denny Reyes really done? I mean, if he wouldn't have been let go by another team. And the fact of the matter is, I mean, I'm looking at Cody Sedlock's numbers right now. He hasn't had a sub 4.6 ERA since 2019, and that was in high A and double A. And then he gets to double A, triple A, and look, 4.55, 5.83. What has Cody Sedlock done to deserve the call-up for this game? What has Denny Reyes done to deserve the call-up for this game? It should have been Grayson Rodriguez. And I understand. I understand that with Grayson Rodriguez, you want to debut him at home, right? You want him to get that debut at home. And as Glenn would say, these games don't matter because it's not like the Orioles are going to the playoffs, so why would you waste his debut on the road? Well, the games matter to people. The games matter to me. They matter to Zach. They matter to you all listening out there. You wouldn't be listening if these games didn't matter. Grayson Rodriguez is the most deserving person in the minor leagues to make a start today. And he's not. Is he going to debut at home on Wednesday against the Mariners? The guy has nothing left to prove at the minor league level. He has nothing left to prove. So I get wanting to debut him at home, and I was actually talking with somebody on Twitter yesterday and today, who also agreed that he should be starting today. However, he said it might be likely that he gets his start at home against the Cubs on June 7th because it gives him then an opportunity to start 3 of his first 4 games at home, and his one road game is against the Kansas City Royals, which makes a lot of sense to me.
It does.
That makes a lot of sense to me. But what else do we need to see from Grayson Rodriguez? Can he go through a lineup 3 times? Check. Can he get into the 7th inning? Check. Can he shut down AAA competition? Check, 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 check. He's got nothing left to prove. Mm-hmm. It's time for this guy to be here. I really believed that I didn't think they would, but I believe that they should skip his start last night and have him start today.
Yeah, that's the funny part about the Orioles. There's a lot of things that we believe they should do.
We're back up on Facebook.
We are
right?
back live. Yes, one of the USBs was plugged into this computer that needed to be plugged in over there. So we figured it out essentially. That was the issue. But, yeah, there's a lot of things that we think the Orioles should do that they don't do because they're an organization that probably takes things a little bit slower and more carefully than a majority of the other organizations out there. And Grayson Rodriguez is just another one of those examples. He's a guy who really has nothing left to prove. I mean, he's done everything. He's dominated everywhere he's been. You look up and down at his minor league numbers, they're certainly not Cody Sedlock's, where they've been shaky basically everywhere. I mean, Grayson Rodriguez has dominated in every single level and every single aspect of everything. Grayson Rodriguez has been the most dominant pitcher in minor league baseball for years. And, you know, he's 22 years old. And I think that's the one thing that kind of holds me back from saying he needs to make the start in Fenway tonight, because I don't think so. I actually would rather give him another start in AAA and then bring him up like June 7th. I think that makes a lot of sense. I'd rather bring him up at home. I think he's going to feel more comfortable, and bring him up in a place in Camden Yards where, frankly, not that many balls are getting hit out of the ballpark at the moment, and it's becoming a decently easy place to pitch. So I'm not overwhelmed or excited with the promotion of Cody Sedlock. I mean, that which hasn't actually happened yet, but it's imminent, of course. I'm not excited by Cody Sedlock, but oh well, I guess.
Former first round pick in what was it, 2016?
16, yeah.
2016. He should have been here by now as a first round
pick.
Right,
he's just not very good.
He had some arm issues after he got drafted, and he just never got back to the same form that made him a first round draft pick. And now you look at him, and what's his ceiling? A middle reliever?
If that.
If that.
Yeah, I mean, I see him more as kind of a 4A guy.
Right.
Someone who comes up, makes your spot start here and there. I'm not sure he'll ever lock down a role in a Major League bullpen, especially with the way the Orioles have been pitching. I'm not sure he fits in with the rest of the crowd as far as the Orioles bullpen goes. I'm not sure Cody Sedlock would fit in there.
Right. Well, you never know.
You never know.
He's got to come up and perform, and we've seen guys who we thought maybe didn't have a future, like Keegan Aiken, and like Jorge Lopez, and they come in here this year, and they're absolutely lights out of the bullpen and two of the best relievers in the American League. So it remains to be seen with Cody Sedlock. I guess my overall point is you fall behind really early last night, 6-0, right? You have this miraculous comeback. Today, now look, generally you probably split doubleheaders anyway.
Yeah.
It's rare that and the Orioles haven't swept a doubleheader, I think, since like 2015. It's been a really long time since the Orioles last swept a doubleheader. But the thing about it is, actually, I think it was 2013 when they swept the Dodgers, of all teams, in a doubleheader. I was at the second game of that. But anyway, I digress. You're basically giving a game away by starting one of these guys.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Because you used all of that oomph last night to come back and win that ball game. And we've seen it before. The Orioles, when they score a ton of runs, they generally are shut down on offense the next day.
That's been the trend, yeah.
Right. So a season high for runs last night. You're starting a guy in one of the games today where he doesn't – and hopefully he's starting the first game.
So Jordan Lyles is just announced as the Game 1 starter.
As the Game 1 starter at 12:05 today.
Yes.
And
then they do have listed as Cody Sedlock in the bullpen for now.
Cody Sedlock in the bullpen?
That's what Rakubako just tweeted, yeah.
Okay, so you look at that. If the Orioles don't win Game 1, you're basically giving the Red Sox a doubleheader sweep. Because you can't expect to go out there and win a game with one of these guys who were struggling at AAA.
Right.
You know, it takes me back to 2018 and 2019 when they traded Jonathan Scope for Luis Ortiz from the Brewers organization, and he was once a top, highly thought-of prospect.
Yeah.
He was terrible in the minor leagues in 18 and in 19, and yet he kept getting called up for spot starts. I guess they wanted to see what they had, but that was 2019. That was 2018 and 2019. That's a 115 and 108 loss team. Right. We believe that the Orioles are a much better team this year than they were that year. I don't want to see guys get starts that don't deserve to get the starts.
I don't disagree at all. I don't know where Denny Reyes has really earned a start because, like you said, the numbers haven't been phenomenal for him and certainly not for Sedlock. I mean, we talked about Sedlock's numbers earlier, but the guy's got a 5.83 ERA in Norfolk. And we've talked about it a million times on the show, but the gap between AAA and Major League Baseball is only growing bigger. And I think that you're bringing guys up like this who are significantly worse pitchers than the rest of the crowd as far as the Orioles go. I mean, Cody Sedlock and Denny Reyes are significantly worse pitchers than what the Orioles have because they have pretty good pitching for the most part. I guess contrary to what you would have thought coming into the season. There's some guys that are a lot better than you would have expected. I mean, Cianel Perez is an incredible example of a guy who went from a 6 ERA last year to a 1 ERA this year. So there's certainly a lot of improvement.
Sub-1.
Right, and I'm not saying that's going to happen for Cody Sedlock. Maybe Chris Holt can help him out in some scenarios, but you do have to think that, Chris Holt's been here, what 3 years?
2 years. Yesterday
2 years
yesterday was his first year as the Orioles pitching coach and their pitching director for the entire system.
But he was in 2020, I believe, still with the organization.
He's been with the organization for more than a few years, and they made him pitching coach because they were going to lose him otherwise.
Right. So, I mean, after 3 years of being in the organization, if he was going to help Cody Sedlock and make him a better pitcher, you would have thought it would have happened already.
Right.
Hopefully. But maybe
you get to the big league level and you have more hands-on coaching. Mm-hmm. And we've seen people like I look back at Manny Machado, and again, when he got called up, he wasn't lighting the world on fire at Double-A, and then he came up to the majors, and he was a significantly better player at the majors because you get the big league coaching, right? And you get into a big league regimen. Does that mean I think that Cody Sedlock's suddenly going to become a stellar reliever? I don't. I don't know, but if I was a betting man, I'd bet against it for this game. And what are we looking at here? Is Keegan Aiken, he just threw a couple of innings the other night.
Yeah.
Is he ready to throw a few more innings today? I don't know about all that. Is it going to be Sedlock and then Reyes? Is it going to be Reyes and then Sedlock? They could have called on Michael Baumann to throw a few innings today, but he just pitched 2 innings 2 days ago.
I don't know also if he's at his 10-day, because once he gets sent down,
that doesn't matter when you're playing a doubleheader. So there's a number of guys that they could have used, and they went with these two guys. And
it's disheartening a little bit.
And it's if this was last year or the year before, it wouldn't be as disheartening because it's kind of what you expect. The Orioles have shown great signs of life this year and signs of being a far more competitive team than they have been in quite some time. Yeah. And you want to keep the good mojo going. You want to keep the juices flowing. And now you're not. You're basically throwing a wrench in those spokes because you're saying we're okay with giving a game away. Well, if you don't win the first game, then you're really giving 2 games away.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, Jordan Lyles should give them a fine start, but the Boston bats have been so hot as of late.
Right, and Lyles has been pitching really well recently. Yeah. He's due for a dud.
That is the general pattern with Jordan Lyles. He'll give you a couple great starts. He'll give you a bad one. That's what he did for Texas last year, and so far for the Orioles, that's been somewhat the same pattern. And you're right. It's probably due for a bad start here.
I do love his mentality, though.
Right. I mean, save the bullpen.
He's like, I'm going out there for the boys.
Right.
I'm giving you another inning because I'm the one who's going to get this done for you. That dude can pitch for me any day of the week. Mm-hmm. I'm cool with Jordan Lyles pitching for me any day of the week, and for all I know, he'll go out there and give him 6 in the 3rd innings of a 3-run ball today. But if he doesn't, and then you have this game coming up after that, this bullpen game, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
But then, again, they'd say, well, why does it matter? They're not going to the playoffs this year. Why does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, and that's I think the argument a lot of people have made is that you're not bringing up Grayson Rodriguez because you're not trying to maximize wins. I mean, Glenn's point yesterday he made to me was that if this was a playoff race and the Orioles were trying to win, then of course they would bring up. If this was August, September, of course Grayson Rodriguez would be the guy in Boston tonight. But they don't need to maximize wins at the moment. I'm kind of in the middle there. I don't really side with one. I mean, I still think winning is important even when you're in the situation the Orioles are right now.
Right, and for me, yeah, they're not going to win 85, 90 games this year, but maybe they could win 75 games this year. And if you win 75 games this year, maybe to expedite your process a little bit. Maybe they say, you know what, we weren't really going to go make a big splash in free agency this coming offseason, maybe the offseason after this one, but we might only be a player or two away from really getting into the thick of things here with what we have on our roster currently. Maybe having a 75 to 80 win season this year gets you to that point where you're spending a little bit earlier than you otherwise would have, and that's why it matters to me. People talk about, I think the Orioles will make the playoffs in 2025. That's still 3 years away. That's still 3 years away, and we're looking at a situation where that's a 7 or 8 year rebuild. And who wants that? Who wants that? But look, we're going to see what happens today. For all we know, Lyles will go out there and throw a 2-hitter, and then Sedlock will come in and give him 3 scoreless innings. The bullpen will take over, and the Orioles sweep a doubleheader. I'm not betting on it, but we will see. Just want to remind you, today's show is brought to you by the Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. The best place to be for the playoffs and all the big upcoming events is the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, Maryland. Bet on every sport with 61 self-service kiosks open 24/7, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. There are some absolutely huge events happening this weekend, including the NBA and NHL playoffs, the Champions League final this afternoon, the Gervonta Davis-Rolando Romero fight tonight, and the Indianapolis 500 tomorrow. Reserve your spot in the FanDuel Sportsbook for all of these events right now by emailing events@sportssocialmd.com. That's events@sportssocialmd.com. On the line with us right now, he's getting through it. He's battling an illness right now. He is Stan the Fan, Charles, and he's live with us today on the Batter-On. Good morning, Stan. How are you feeling this morning?
Little rough, guys. Little rough.
Little rough. Well, hopefully that Orioles victory last night made you feel a little bit better. What a comeback, Stan.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. It was a pretty amazing game in the annals of Oriole history, and just a really significant win, no question about it.
Yeah, the Orioles their season high for runs before last night was 9, and then they scored 10 runs in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings combined last night. Bullpen really locked it down after Bradish faltered. The offense pounded out 12 runs on 15 hits, including 3 home runs, 3 big home runs. What did you see from this team last night, Stan? Does this team give you this sense of resiliency where you never feel like they're out of a game?
I wouldn't say I feel like they're never out of a game, but certainly last night when it was 8-2, I didn't think that they were in that ball game, and they, just put on a shocking display in the late innings against Boston's bullpen.
Yeah, and now they have a. Unfortunately, they had to use their bullpen rather early last night. The Orioles did because Bradish got knocked out after in the second inning. And now
Who's starting today? Is Zimmerman starting today?
Jordan Lyles in game one.
Oh,
And then,
well, that's right, Lyles. Okay,
and then it's
doubleheader, right?
either Denny Reyes or Cody Sedlock in game two. And that leads me to my next point, Stan. Grayson Rodriguez went out there after his 11 strikeout performance this past Sunday. He goes out last night and gives arguably his best performance of his minor league career. 7 innings pitched, 2 hits, no runs, no walks, 10 strikeouts, 88 pitches, 68 strikes. I was on the boat of I didn't want him to start last night because I wanted him to start for the Orioles in game 2 tonight. Orioles aren't on that timeline. The Orioles are looking to debut him probably in the next couple of weeks at home to get a little bit of that home cooking going for him. Do you anticipate his first start coming over the next 2 weeks? And do you have the same issue that I have where there's nobody more deserving, and I'm tired of seeing them call up guys who shouldn't be at the big league level just to fill a spot?
I'm really not all that, I'm not concerned on that too much on the day to day, and I think the issue that they have is when he comes up, they'd like to sort of use him straight through to the end of the season, and I think they feel that if they bring him up too soon, they won't be able to kind of control his innings quite as closely as they are right now.
Well, yeah, and you know what? That is a fair point because this is a guy who didn't pitch in 2020 because of the pandemic.
Yep.
Limited innings last year. I think he threw about 100 innings last year. They're not going to just ramp him up to 200 innings this year. It's going to be one of those things where they want to slow play it. So that does make perfect sense. And I've been talking with Daniel Victor on Twitter, and he was saying that he thinks that it would be much more logical for the Orioles to debut him on the 7th at home against the Cubs, and then they go on the road to face the Royals, and then he comes home and faces a couple of other not great teams at home. So 3 of his first 4 starts would be at home and 1 on the road against the lowly Royals. Do you think that timeline makes more sense if they're planning to start him on June 7th?
Again, I'm not following it quite as closely as you are, Paul. I'm just not. So I don't know what day they'll start him, against what team they'll start him. Mike Elias is making those decisions, and he seems to have. While it seems slow to a lot of us, he seems to have some type of logic to what he's doing.
Yeah, and you know what, Stan, to that point, I tend not to question Elias too much. I did question him simply with the way that they rolled out Adley Rutschman without really marketing it too much. But he clearly has a plan and clearly doesn't care what other people think. He's going to go based on what he thinks and when he thinks that these players are ready and based on how much he can maximize efficiency for the Orioles. So I totally understand that. Now, speaking of Adley Rutschman, he debuted last Saturday, had a triple in his first game for his first Major League hit to join Manny Machado and Matt Wieters as top prospects to triple for their first Major League hits for the Orioles. Only batting .200 with a .259 on base percentage right now, but what have you seen from him, Stan? How does he look behind the plate to you, and do you like what you're seeing from him?
I like what I'm seeing. I was a little disappointed last night in that at bat with Xander Bogaerts. I'm not myopically watching him, how he's catching, but Bradish was ahead of Bogaerts 1-2. And the 2-2 pitch, he put the glove way up, and Bradish threw a high fastball, and Bogaerts wasn't biting. And I said, yeah, you just really shouldn't be fooling around like that with Bogaerts. Go after him on that 1-2 pitch when you're ahead of him. Throw something like devastating that he can't lay off of. And sure enough, threw another ball, went to 3-2, and then he gave up a 3-run homer.
Right.
And I thought that I did not like the sequence at all, and I was a little disappointed in Rutschman's attempt to sort of get Bogarts to go for a high fastball.
And do you think that that's
I
something
thought
that?
it was a total. I thought it was a total waste pitch. You know.
Yeah, and I totally understand that. Do you think that maybe it's still that adjustment of, you know what, in AAA, these guys chase that pitch, whereas in the majors, these guys probably take that pitch, and that's just something that's a bit of a learning curve for Rutschman, something that he'll figure out along the way.
I'm sure he will. I'm sure he'll figure it out. But I expected him to be a little higher level of kind of his intuition would be a little a little raised higher by now. You know.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you there. And one thing I can tell you, Stan, is if I know anything about Adley Rutschman, if you're aware of that, he's aware of that, and he's probably going to do something to make amends for that. Almost hit a home run last night. It would have been his fly out to right field in his third at bat would have been a home run in 3 ballparks in baseball, but not in Fenway. But maybe the battle start to get going here sooner rather than later. Like we said, batting just 200 with a 259 on base percentage. But he is leading the major leagues in pitches seen per bat, albeit in a small sample size. How important is that, considering the fact that his bat hasn't really gotten going yet?
I love the fact that he basically is in no hurry to swing. You know, I like a guy like that. You know.
Do you think that maybe his swing is a little long and looping? It seems like he has his big uppercut swing, and he's having a hard time getting to the high fastball. He's swinging right through it because to me, it seems like he's got that launch angle swing, and he's just not getting on top of it like you would expect him to. Do you think that that's something that maybe he needs to work on, or something that will get better as time goes on?
I'm sure he'll get better at it. I'm sure he'll get better. He's a real student. He's a student of the game. There's no question about it.
Absolutely. Now, Stan, last week we were talking about Jorge Mateo and how he's really thrusting himself into a role for this Orioles team now and in the future. And then right after that conversation, he goes into this huge 2 for 28 slump. Now, last night he did hit the 3-run homer, but he is still just 3 for his last 32 with about 14 strikeouts. Are you concerned with Jorge Mateo's slump, or considering the fact that he's never really gotten his bat going for an extended period at the big league level, or is it just another slump?
I'm not that concerned about Mateo. You know, to me, the biggest thing I've noticed with Mateo the last 2-3 weeks is such an improvement defensively.
Right.
His offense doesn't concern me that much. You know, he's a pretty dynamic player. And he's gonna be pretty streaky, I think. But again, I've just really liked the way he's nailed down the job at shortstop right now.
Yeah, no, the defense has certainly gotten better. We remember the 3 errors he made against the Yankees in that Thursday game, the night of the NFL draft. But the defense has been really, really stupendous, in my opinion, since then. Now, Ramon Urias, the glove has been really good at third base. The arm, and I noticed at the home opener that the arm just hasn't been getting the strength. Hasn't had the strength to get the ball across a diamond consistently. But the bat's coming alive. And Stan, I do think that Ramon Urias has one of the better bats in the lineup. His last 7 games, he's batting .357 and .278 over his last 15 games. Is this a guy who you think has a role with the Orioles moving forward? There's not really a guy for second base other than Rougned Odor right now who we don't think is part of the future. Do you think that Ramon Urias, especially with his hot hitting lately, is carving out a nice role for himself for the Orioles?
Yeah, I think he is. You know, and I wouldn't underestimate Odor either. You know, and I'm not talking 5 years, but I could certainly the Odor we're seeing this year. What he makes, I certainly think he could be a part of the Orioles for the next 1 or 2 seasons.
Yeah, and you know what, Stan?
And it's shy, and I have to admit, I'm shocked that I'm saying that. You know, because I've had such little appreciation for his offensive game the last 3-4 seasons. Thought he'd been a disaster offensively, and clearly he's gone to work and he's doing. He's made himself relevant again.
Well, Stan, it's interesting with both Mateo and Urias, not including Odor here. He's a little bit farther down this list. But as far as WAR goes for the Orioles and what these guys have been able to do, Mateo is number 5 for the Orioles, and Urias is number 6. So even though they've had these, sort of prolonged slumps and the bat hasn't really come along, somehow they're creating all this value that they're both in the top 6 of Orioles players WAR-wise.
Yeah, well, Urias is a player we all like. And the question with him, again, is sort of his ability to stay on the field. Because he's a little frail, he just seems to break down, and that's probably something that's kept him from a role on a big league club for a while now.
Yeah, and getting back to Odor, he's in the middle of an 11-game hit streak after having a 3-hit game last night. Stan, I was with you. I wasn't a fan of the signing. I didn't understand it. And the first month, he only hit 180. I wasn't on the Odor train.
I saw the spring training numbers were awful. I really did not expect him to be on the club pass like May the 1st,
Neither did I, but I have no choice but to hop on board because he's come up with big hit after big hit. He's seemingly getting a hit every night now, and the defense is shored up a little bit. The Orioles have a guy at second base right now where they can put him out there and not have to really worry about him. And I never thought I'd say that about Odor, but he's become that guy for the Orioles this year. It's pretty surprising.
Yeah, it's interesting to listen to Hyde talk. He clearly they did some homework reconnaissance on him as to what type of teammate he was, and whether he was selfish, and they found out some things about him. I mean, I heard Brandon Hyde say he talked to Rizzo. So he clearly talked to him. Hyde has a relationship with Rizzo from Anthony Rizzo from days when he was with the Cubs, and he, they did their homework on him.
Yeah, and it's paying off for the Orioles right now. It's one less thing for them to worry about for the time being, and maybe it helps them not have to rush any prospects just to fill out a position. Not that they would have anyway. Now, Stan, Odor could be making himself a trade candidate for the Orioles, along with guys like Trey Mancini, Anthony Santander, Jordan Lyles. How many of these guys do you think make it through the trade deadline, and how many of them do you think are going to be gone by the time we're talking on August 1st?
Don't really know. I'm sure Lyles there'll be some interest in, but I'm not quite sure that they don't view Lyles as somebody that could be here a couple of years. I'm just not sure.
Right. If history gives us any indication, Michael Elias will probably make a trade or two. And again, you can't really bank on your prospects getting to the major league level and then having success. We think DL Hall and Grayson Rodriguez are definitely going to be something in this rotation. We think Tyler Wells might be able to take another step forward next year. But if you have Jordan Lyles, it makes it so that if they don't, it's okay because you have somebody else to fill that role and a veteran at that. We'll see how things go over the next 6 to 8 weeks. And Stan, before we let you go, I want to get into your power rankings here. No surprise, the Yankees are still first. You moved the Padres up to number 6 from number 7 the week before, but you noted that the offense is putrid outside of Machado. They should be getting Fernando Tatis back here in the next month. Do you see them trading for some bats by the deadline if they're still thick in the race like they are right now?
I mean, Preller usually makes something happen, but boy, when I look at the offense of that team and all the dollars spent and all the moves made, that's just an awful offense right now.
Yeah. Now Machado is clearly the front runner for MVP in the National League. Eric Hosmer's hitting over 330. He's having a nice season, but there's really nobody else. I mean, Luke Voit hit a home run last night, but I think he's been injured for the better part of the season.
Cronenberg turned out to be just awful. Grisham's not doing much. What's his name? Will Myers. I mean, it's just an awful offense.
Yeah, I would imagine if they want to stay and think. And look, Bob Melvin's a big difference maker over there. The rotation is really, really good. But if they want to keep pace with the Dodgers and they want to fend off teams like the Mets and the Giants and the Cardinals, they're going to have to get better on offense. I agree with you there, Stan. And, to your point about Will Myers, I mean, he's in just 233. This is a former top prospect who's had some all-star appearances. He's been a big-time player for them, and he's just not getting the job done right now. And then, like you said, Trent Grisham hit him 157. They definitely need some help. Is there anybody that you would have in mind that maybe they could trade for? Could they be a team that could be in play for a guy like a Trey Mancini?
Not really sure. Certainly Trey would help a club like that, but he'd probably be required to play outfield all the time, and I don't know. Well, I guess with designated hitter, you could DH him.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting thought. It's a big ballpark for him to play in, though.
Yeah.
It's not a great offensive ballpark.
Yeah, but to that point, he's playing his home games at Camden Yards, which is now the hardest ballpark to hit home runs out of left field in. So,
yep.
I've thought that Trey Mancini has made sense for the Padres for the last couple of years now, and maybe he doesn't end up there. But we'll see what happens there. Now, you flip-flop the Padres and the Angels in your power rankings. The Angels are now sitting at number 7. The offense is very good. It seems like they need some more pitching. Do you see them being in play for a starting pitcher or two by the deadline?
It's a possibility. I've been pretty impressed with what their pitching has shown up to the moment.
Yeah,
and I'd need to see a couple more outings from this young kid, Silspeth.
Yeah.
That they Chase Smilspeth.
Yeah, and
that
he's
they
got to
brought up.
Be able to get a little bit deeper into games. I think he only went like 3 1/3 innings last night. He's got to be able to prove that he can go deeper into games for sure.
I mean, look, they've gotten a lot out of Syndergaard and Lorenzen so far. They've both been like brilliant additions. And then they have the left-hander Sandoval's pitching well, and Detmers has pitched a no-hitter. I'm not so sure that their bigger need isn't, again, somebody that really can nail down that bullpen, in the bridge roll to Iglesias,
Yeah.
I still see a little that Tepera. I'm not saying I don't like Tepera, but he's just not having a great season. He's doing a better job, but Archie Bradley hasn't been that great. He's been injured. So I think their bigger need is still bullpen help.
Yeah, and that would seem to be the case. I am looking at their rotation, and Detmers has the worst ERA, and that's at 4.65. It looks like Lorenzen and Syndergaard are having nice seasons, and Silvsted's having a nice start to his year as well. So you're right, they might have something there for sure. Stan, it's going to be an interesting summer of baseball, and I'm excited to see how this all plays out. Stan, we're going to let you go, man. Go rest that throat. I know that you've had a sore throat and been pretty sick here for a while, so go rest up and get better, all right?
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right, we'll
Stay
talk to you
well.
soon.
Bye.
And that was Stan the Fan Charles. It was 2 great shows for you every week. Every Monday night, Stan and former Orioles pitcher Ross Grimsley visit with a different guest from the world of baseball. And every Thursday night, Stan and Gary Stein chat with a different newsmaker from the world of sports. This week, Stan and Gary chatted with former Johns Hopkins and UMBC coach Don Zimmerman, who has been working the NCAA lacrosse tournament for ESPN. Find those shows under the videos tab at facebook.com/PressBoxSports or at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. Stan and Ross will be off on Monday for Memorial Day, but Stan and Gary will be back with another great show later this week. When we come back in, Zach's going to sound off here on the Bat Around.
Baseball is back, and so is the spring seasonal menu at Glory Days Grill. Start with the opener, flash-fried pork belly with our popular Korean No. 2 sauce, and take a bite out of the Crunch Burger, topped with home run sauce, white American cheese, and house-made chips. It also features irresistible options like a baseball-cut sirloin with blue cheese, grilled shrimp with garlic butter, and a strawberry salmon salad. And then there's the closer, the Cracker Jack Sundae with a waffle, ice cream, and Cracker Jack. This menu will be gone at your neighborhood Glory Days Grill. GloryDaysGrill.com to find out more. Great food, good sports.
I'm Griffin Bass, and I have the extraordinary, mind-blowing, and life-affirming pleasure of being the new producer for the absolute funniest, smartest, and most handsome sports host in all of Baltimore. Wait a second, Glenn, I'm working for you, not Jeremy Kahn. If you're not listening to Glenn Clark Radio, here's what you're missing.
He's Coach Kevin Willard.
Glenn, thanks for having me.
Baltimore Ravens wide receiver Rashad Bateman.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
He is outfielder Cedric Mullins.
Thank you guys for having me.
Trey Mancini.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Mr. Marcus Williams, who's now with us.
Man, appreciate it. Happy to be on.
Ravens kicker Justin Tucker.
Thanks for having me.
Adley Rutschman.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
John Angelos.
Thanks a lot. Good to be with you.
Ryan Mountcastle.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Marlon Humphrey.
Thank you.
Talia Tungavailoa.
Thank you guys for having me.
He is J.K. Dobbins.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
The great Ray Lewis.
Always good to be on.
He is Mr. Cal Ripken Jr.
Good chatting with you.
Watch Glenn Clark Radio at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline and listen live at PressBoxOnline.com/radio or anytime on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or anywhere you get your podcasts.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a wide range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Toyota to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
Sports fans, the wait is over. The all-new FanDuel Sportsbook is now open at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. This is your chance to win big right in your own backyard. Bet on every sport with self-service kiosks and watch all of the action from the best seat in the house. Make every moment more at the all-new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
Back in here on the bat around, almost through the first full hour. Don't know what just happened with the music.
I just cut that off way early.
I was super early.
Got to slide it down.
The first hour of the bat around is brought to you by the latest edition of Press Box, which is available now on the cover. Luke Jackson profiles Orioles catcher Adley Rutschman, diving into where his passion for catching in baseball came from and how he uses that passion to elevate those around him in the Orioles organization. Also inside, Bo Smolka takes a look at how the Ravens' 2021 draft picks can make progress this season. And Glenn Clark offers a very unique tribute to former rival Mike Krzyzewski that all Maryland fans can appreciate. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores. You can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
You know what it is, Paul? I'm getting too used to producing GCR because there is no intro music when you come back into GCR. It's just your voice talking about wearing no pants. So I have to cut it off. Right? I have to cut it off. I love that segment, by the way. You go, not wearing pants like I'm doing right now or something like that. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, it was I wasn't wearing pants. I just wanted to let you know.
I just heard, I hadn't heard this until I came on GCR on Wednesday, and I was like, wow, that was interesting.
Yeah, no, he gave me some 3 different reads to do for coming back from commercial breaks. And that was,
I like them. They're good.
Was one of them. I added my own little twist to it. Any hoodle, not something I had ever said before that read.
I bet. So, yeah.
We have sounding off Zach Goodman, which is brought to you today by your local Toyota dealer. Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today. Zach, what do you got for me?
So we talked about it in the intro, and I'm not sure if people actually heard it because I don't think we were live at that point on Facebook. We were having those technical issues, but we talked about Apple TV Plus and their broadcast of the Orioles game last night. And I've seen clips. I haven't sat down and actually watched a full game on Apple TV Plus until last night. That was my first one. They're only played once a week. It's only Friday nights, so not any real reason for me to watch a game on Apple TV Plus until now. But I expected to kind of think, okay, this is going to be just another broadcast. I'm not sure why Apple does this. I don't like the exclusivity of it, whatever. But I was really impressed. I was very, very impressed by what they had last night. The probabilities, the live real-time probabilities going in the right corner of the screen, I mean, that's something that I think is really it kind of ties in with all the analytical steps the game is taking. And it's giving fans a real-time opportunity to kind of see, like, okay, is this guy going to strike out, get on base, whatever. They have a bunch of probabilities running. They have, game-winning probability, all of that. So I think all of that is very high-tech. It's cool. It's something that should be across all broadcasts in baseball. Apple TV is the first one that's really giving you these live real-time probabilities. But this is something that, again, with this analytical drive that we're going through in baseball right now, where every single team is doubling down on their analytic department and trying to get better in this department, every broadcast should be showing fans this kind of stuff, because this is what the teams are seeing. I mean, they're seeing these real-time probabilities just like, as the players go up to hit and everything. I mean, they're seeing these probabilities. So I think fans should be able to see them in a similar fashion. And what Apple TV shows, I think, is very high-tech and very cool. And as we talked about in the intro as well, the picture was incredibly sharp. I mean, the graphics were so much better than what you get on MASN or any of the other regional sports networks that a lot of these games are broadcast on. And I just think the whole production was very clean, very crisp. The probabilities were great. I think this should be the new standard. I mean, teams, these regional broadcast networks, obviously, they're certainly not as rich as Apple is. It's going to be a lot tougher to do what Apple does. But something like real-time probabilities, that can't be that difficult to incorporate. Right. And it just makes everything way more fun to watch. I had a really, really good time watching that game with the way Apple TV did the production. It was excellent.
And not to mention a 6-run comeback and the Orioles scoring 10 unanswered runs. That
was fun.
But, no, I tend to agree with you on that, Zach. I thought that the broadcast was fantastic. I thought that I liked the analytics they put up there. The probability. I happened to catch the end of the Blue Jays Angels game after I got done prepping the show, and they put down in the corner when Mike Trout was up, home run probability 3%, and I'm like, that's cool, because now I'm watching. Like, is he going to hit a home run now? Like that?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It made it a much more interesting watch, because now you're watching to see if they do what the probability says.
It's interactive, and it gets you thinking, like, okay, how did they come up with that, right? Like, it gets you thinking about it.
If Mike Trout is batting in the bottom of the 8th inning, his team's the ball game's tied 3-3, and he has a 3% chance to hit a home run. Does that mean that they took into account how many times has he homered in the 8th inning? How many home runs does he average per game, per season, in certain counts and certain temperatures, stuff like that? How much of that is factored in?
I'm sure all of it. And it's really cool.
That out. It's seems like a lot of work that I wouldn't want to do.
No, I wouldn't.
But it does seem pretty cool. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I thought that it was an A+, a gold standard for broadcast last night. And the Orioles' own Melanie Newman. Is she going to be calling a lot of those games?
She calls everyone, I believe. She's the lead play-by-play announcer for Apple.
Oh, that's very cool. And so we got to hear a familiar voice during an Orioles game that we otherwise may not have heard for an Apple TV broadcast. No, I don't think she's the main voice, because
I believe she is,
because maybe she's the main voice for that time slot. But there's 2 other games that are going to be played on Friday nights now that she's not going to be able to call, because she's going to be calling one of the other ones.
Yeah, I don't know. I believe she does at least one. I know they have multiple games on Apple TV, but I believe she does one.
She's the main one on Friday nights for one of the broadcasts.
Right, exactly.
So if they have 3 broadcasts, they have 3 lead commentators, and she's one of the lead commentators.
I guess that's the way it works. Yeah.
So that makes sense. And Melanie, we've had her on the show a number of times. She is a pioneer for women in sports broadcasting, and just killing it out there for the Orioles and for Major League Baseball as a whole. So kudos to Melanie for doing another great job, and we look forward to hearing her on more Orioles broadcasts and on more Apple TV broadcasts now and in the future.
I'll certainly be tuning in on Friday nights now from, if I'm around, seeing these games, because they're really entertaining. And if I wish the Orioles were going to be on more, or any other team I care about, but certainly they're not going to get that many spots, because they are the Orioles, unfortunately.
I just it'd be cool to see them on Apple TV, but I also think if you're going to do that, you still need to give people the option to watch their team on their
100% agree.
But the exclusivity, if we have to pay extra money to have MASN as part of our cable package just so that we can stream MASN, then we should be able to watch every single Orioles game on MASN. And if you want to broadcast it on Apple TV too for the rest of the country to see, especially when the Orioles get back into a competitive playing level, that's cool. But if Orioles fans need to be able to see their team.
I don't disagree at all. And by the way, though, kudos to Masson. I don't know if we ever talked about it, but the graphics this year are so much better.
They're so much
They
better.
overhauled everything. Even the quality of video is a little better. I mean, they really did a good job, and it shouldn't go unnoticed because we've been calling out Masson for years because of their graphics that were frankly behind the rest of the industry. And I mean, I think they were from 2006. Was when the last time those graphics, like I'm talking about the score bug and when it comes up with the player stats.
The score bug. If you go back and you look
Maybe
at
like 09?
if you go back and you look at some of those games, it's vastly different.
Is it that much?
It was vastly different, but it wasn't still up to par with the rest with the standard that the rest of the league has set. And the Masson's caught up. They've done a great job. At first, I was a little disappointed that they weren't showing like the players' batting average, home runs, RBIs, and stuff like that. But now they have up in that bug. It says today 1 for 2. Double strikeout.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's up on the screen for you to see.
Yep.
So I do think the Masson has done a good job. And they need, as much as we hate on them, and I'm not the biggest fan of the app, but it's what we have.
Masson, fix the app. You
Yeah.
come in like 8 outs behind.
Yeah.
Like 8 outs behind.
It's not 8 outs behind, but it's
It
generally.
is on mine.
It's
Literally
on average, anywhere from 4 pitches to an inning behind.
I swear the last time I was on there, it was like a good 8 outs behind.
The crazy thing is, there have been times when I've been watching it where it's only been 15 seconds behind.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never experienced that.
Like, I remember watching the Orioles play the Angels, and I was at work, and we had the game on the TV, and I saw Shohei Ohtani fly out to left field, and then 15 seconds later on my phone, I saw Shohei Ohtani fly out to left field. And that happened for like that entire Angels series. But ever since then, it's been 4 pitches behind at a minimum.
But so I haven't experienced that, and also you get like the 3 or 4 minutes of ads before that. Like you get like the
super annoying. And if you leave to if somebody texts you or you have to make a phone call and then you come back, you get those ads all over again.
I know.
And sometimes you don't, but I have no idea when that's going to happen. I remember one time I had played a baseball game with my team, and we went to Independent Brewing Company. I'm sorry, Dependent. Distillery, because we're not allowed to give free plugs here. We went to Dependent Distillery. We were having some cocktails after my game, and I wanted to put the Orioles on because they didn't have TV showing the Orioles game there. And Masson would not start. It just kept playing the same ads over and over and over and over. And I saw the that Medusa commercial.
Yep, hate it. The Amazon one.
I've seen that. I saw that commercial that day 20 times. And then the Ford Bronco commercial I saw probably 12 times before I actually got to the game. And by the time I got to the game, I was ready to leave and go home anyway. Some stuff needs to be fixed. But kudos to Masson because their in-game product has been significantly better. And kudos to you, Zach, for bringing it up because as much as we hate on them, we can praise them when it's deservedly so. And it has been deservedly so this year. All right. Thank you very good, Zach. That was fantastic. Now it is time for the payoff pitch around the league.
That was a new way of saying it right there.
Switch it up a little bit.
That was I don't know how to describe that. That was
a little smoldering.
Interesting. Wow. All right, go ahead.
All right, trailing 6-0 in the 4th and 8-2 in the 7th. The Orioles scored 3 runs in the 7th, 3 in the 8th, and 4 in the 9th to complete an improbable comeback, shocking Boston 12-8. Anthony Santander, Austin Hayes, and Jorge Mateo each homered for the Birds in the victory. Jameson Taillon tossed 8 innings of 2-hit ball. Matt Carpenter homered in just his second game with the Bronx Bombers as the Yankees shut down the Rays 2-0. Alek Manoah struck out 9 over 6 strong innings, while Lourdes Gurriel paced the offense with 3 hits, including the game-winning RBI single in the 9th to lead the Blue Jays over the Angels 4-3. Three Reds batters notched multi-hit efforts to back Graham Ashcraft's 6 1/3 shutout innings as Cincinnati took care of business against the Giants 5-1. They are 12-8 since starting the year 3-22. The Cincinnati Reds. Pete Alonso homered and double, driving in 4 to lead the Mets over the Phillies 8-6. Austin Riley homered and Ozzie Albies drove in 2 as the Braves defeated the Mets 6-4. Bobby Witt Jr. finished a double short of the cycle while driving in 3, but it was a complete offensive onslaught from the Twins that stole the show as 6 players had multi-hit games to lead the Twins over the Royals 10-7. Harrison Bader had 2 hits and 2 stolen bases from the 9-hole, and Paul Goldschmidt hit a 2-run homer to lead the Cardinals over the Brewers 4-2. Mookie Betts, Trey Turner, and Edwin Rios all homered to improve the Dodgers to an NL Best 31-14 as they took down the Diamondbacks 6-4. Luke Voigt hit a big 3-run homer in the 6th, and then Will Myers drove in the game winner in the 8th with a single to help push the Padres past the Pirates 4-3. The Mariners got 4 home runs last night, including one each from Kyle Lewis and Julio Rodriguez to lead the charge in a 6-1 defeat of the Astros. And Marcus Semien and Nate Lowe each had 3 hits and an RBI, and the Rangers scored 3 in the 9th to break a 5-5 tie as they topped the Athletics 8-5. The Rockies and Nationals were postponed due to inclement weather. The game will be made up as part of a day-night doubleheader today. The Guardians and Tigers were postponed due to inclement weather when I was doing this, and no makeup date had been announced.
All right, Rockies and Nationals. As you just mentioned, that's the first game of the day in game 1 of that doubleheader. Austin Gomber versus Aaron Sanchez, 2 struggling teams at 12:05 at Nats Park. Orioles and Red Sox, game 1 of their doubleheader. The Orioles and the Red Sox, they're on national TV for the second day. MLB Network out of market only, but Masson and Nesson as well. Jordan Lyles, Nathan Eovaldi for the O's and the Sox. Royals and Twins, 15-29 Royals, 28-18 Twins in that division of the AL Central. Brady Singer, Chris Archer go to battle. Brewers and Cardinals, Adrian Hauser, and the second start from Matthew Liberatore at 2:15. Rangers and A's at 4 o'clock. Taylor Hearn and Zach Logue, 2 lefties, go to battle there. Game 1 of the doubleheader, Guardians and Tigers. Actually, excuse me, there is no doubleheader as of now, even though they were rained out last night. At 4:10, Shane Bieber and Alex Faedo. Giants and Reds at 4:10, Alex Wood and Vladimir Gutierrez. Gutierrez looking to turn around his 0-6, 8.7 ERA start. Marlins and Braves at 4:10 at Truist Park, Sandy Alcantara versus the lefty Tucker Davidson. Yankees and Rays at 4:10. Garrett Cole, the ace, faces off against Corey Kluber, the former ace of the Cleveland Indians. Game 2 of the doubleheader for the Rockies and Nationals at 6:05. Chad Kuhl and Joan Adone. Second game of the Orioles-Red Sox doubleheader at 6:10. It's most likely going to be Denny Reyes versus Josh Winkowski, but right now it is to be determined for the Orioles at Fenway Park. Dodgers and D-backs, Tony Gonsolin versus Merrill Kelly, 7:15 at Chase Field. Phillies and Mets at Citi Field, 7:15, Zach Eflin versus Taijuan Walker. Cubs and White Sox, to be determined for the Cubs, Johnny Cueto for the Sox in that Chicago matchup, South Side and, all right, what is it, South Side and North Side? Is that what they do? What do they call those two teams, the Cubs and the Sox? Am I wrong in saying that? It's the South Side for the Cubs, right?
I think the White Sox are North Side. And
North Side, okay.
And the Cubs are South Side, but I mean,
I always get confused in that. I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway.
I do too. Through the power of the Googs, we can figure.
Yeah, we can figure that out. Blue Jays and Angels, 10:07. Yusei Kikuchi versus Michael Lorenzen. Lorenzen off to a really good start this year, 5-2, 3.05 ERA. Pirates and Padres, 10:10. JT Brubaker versus Joe Musgrove at Petco Park. Musgrove 1.9 ERA. He'll look to keep going on his solid season so far. And then Astros at Mariners for the final game of the night. Jose Urquidy versus Logan Gilbert at T-Mobile Park. Yeah,
it is Cubs North Side,
okay.
White Sox South Side.
Interesting. I thought the Sox were in the South Side. I didn't know if the Cubs were like a West Side, East Side thing. Wasn't sure.
Oh, I don't
anyway.
know. No, West Side, East Side is.
I'm not like maybe New York. Is that what it is?
Well, West Side, East Side is West Coast, East Coast.
Well, that's okay. I'm not up on my Chicago geography.
Like Tupac versus Biggie.
Ah, okay, makes sense. Makes sense.
But I could be wrong about that. I don't know.
My Chicago geography needs help.
Yeah, my overall geography needs help. I found it interesting that the Cubs and White Sox had a scheduled day off last night, which is a Friday day off. Now, that happened a couple times last year also. Very weird to me to not have a couple of teams playing on a Friday night. Now, I guess because it's a 3-game series and maybe they want to play on Memorial Day.
Yeah.
I get that, but random Friday off for the Cubs and White Sox.
That is bizarre.
All right, so Orioles Banter today is brought to you by PressBox's Glenn Clark Radio, which is the definitive place to find the best daily discussion of Baltimore sports. You can watch the show every weekday from 10 to noon at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline or Facebook.com/PressBoxSports or listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio with podcasts available on iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. You never know who might pop up on GCR. This week, the guys caught up with newly re-signed Ravens defensive lineman Brent Urban, incoming Maryland basketball transfer Jameer Young, and Norfolk Tides manager Buck Britton. You can find those interviews and more in the Glenn Clark Radio Week in Review feature right now at PressBoxOnline.com. And today's Orioles Banter segment, we're talking about the near future. And we already went off a little bit, at least I went off a little bit, about how Grayson Rodriguez should be getting one of the starts today. But he pitched last night, and he absolutely shoved.
He did.
DL Hall put together a scoreless outing with a bunch of strikeouts again in his last outing after getting knocked around the previous 2 starts a little bit. So it's nice to see him have a nice bounce back. And I'm looking at this Orioles team, and we're already seeing it start to turn over.
Sure.
A little bit with Adley Rutschman getting here, Kyle Bradish getting here, though he hasn't been very good the last few starts. You're wondering who's going to be in the next wave. And we think that the next guy to get called up is probably going to be Grayson Rodriguez. We think that the Orioles are probably going to trade Santander and Trey Mancini. And, if they do that, although Santander, I believe, had a 3-hit game last night.
He did. He's been playing.
And I think he had 4 RBIs.
You're certainly going to anger a lot of people with those two trades. But, I think we've kind of known, especially with Mancini, they've been somewhat inevitable for the past while, considering those two are playing two of the most replaceable positions and two of the most deep positions the Orioles have in the minors.
Yeah, and you know what? At the beginning of the year, I thought that Trey Mancini was a guy who should be traded because there just wasn't a spot for him. But as you're watching the season play out and you're looking at the regulars for the Orioles, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 regulars hitting below 250.
Yeah.
In this lineup. And we talk about Anthony Santander. He had 2 hits last night and 3 I could have sworn he had 3 hits last night. But he had 2 hits, 3 RBIs, 3 runs scored, and a walk. But he's hitting 226.
Yeah.
It's
and the on-base percentage is not stellar either.
Well, I mean, he's got the 23 walks, which has tied his career high, and we're just at the end of May. I mean, his on-base percentage isn't terrible because of all the walks. It's at 340.
Yeah, I mean,
for his career, it's 297.
Right, and if he was hitting a lot, if he was hitting, even 250, where could his on-base percentage be? It'd be a lot higher. And the bat has just not been. It's been inconsistent.
It has.
He's come up with some big hits, and he's faltered in big situations as well.
Despite the error last night, he's been playing really good defense in both corner outfield spots. The bat. He's had some big hits. He's had some big home runs for the team. He leads the team. I think he has 9 home runs now, which leads the team. I think he also leads the team in RBIs. He's not having a terrible year, but that batting average is so low.
It is.
226. We've got to stop being okay with guys hitting this low.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that you've almost become numb to it at this point because that's what this has been in this rebuild. Is you've got a lot of guys who are hitting 226 and 215, and there are plenty of guys in this rebuild who have hit under 200 as well. And maybe you've become a little numb to it because you've seen so much of it. But even as we talk about Rougned Odor and what he's done in the past few weeks and how he's become hot,
11-game hitting streak.
He's only hitting 237, and there's a lot of guys, like you said, in this lineup that are hitting under 250 at the moment. Now, did you count Adley Rutschman as one of those regulars?
I did.
Okay.
I wasn't going to, but I did because he is a regular, and he's hitting 200, and he's played 6 games, and he's batting 200. Look, we
getting
expect,
game 1 off, by the way.
Well, you would expect that he wouldn't play both ends of the doubleheader. You don't really do that with catchers. With Rutschman, we think that bat's going to come around. Now, look, Wieters never became the hitter we expected him to be. We think that Rutschman is overall a better prospect than Wieters was, and we think he'll end up being a better player. But we still have to see it. Right now, he had a multi-hit game the other day. He's got hits in 3 of the 6 games that he's played in. First hit was a triple. We've seen him just narrowly miss home runs a couple of times, one to left field, one to right field last night. But the bat hasn't gotten going yet. But again, it hasn't even been a full week that he's been up. So that remains to be seen what kind of offensive player he can be, but we think it'll be a pretty good one. Cedric Mullins, we knew he wasn't going to hit 300 all year like he did last year. 30-30 is probably a stretch. I still think he could be a 20-30 or a 20-40 guy. But the batting average, he got it as high as 269 at one point, and it's all the way back down to 246 right now. And the bat's got to get going. He had 2 hits last night, but every time you think he's starting to get going, he falls off again.
Yeah.
He might get it back up to 260, just drop back down to 240 again. And then I look at Trey Mancini. He was hitting 303 2 days ago, or 3 days ago, and now he's down to 288.
I think the most impressive part for Mullins for me last night was the opposite field base hit. That was,
and when you see him get opposite field base hits, that's usually when he starts to pick up, get a bit more of an offensive uptick.
Right, and the swing was good. Not an easy pitch to hit. I believe it was a high and outside fastball that he just punched into left field, which is what you should do with a high and outside fastball as a left-handed hitter. So I love to see that. Now, as soon as I saw that, I was like, that's not the Cedric Mullins we've been seeing over the last few weeks. That's a big improvement right there. So hopefully that gets him on track.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where he was so good last year that when he's not as good this year, maybe it looks more magnified.
Yeah, That's certainly. I think the spotlight's more on him than ever. I mean, and I think there's a big pressure on him. At least maybe something he puts on himself. Maybe not. Maybe nobody else is putting the pressure on him, but I'm sure he put some pressure on himself to live up to the standards.
The spotlight's going to be on him because he was the starting center fielder in the All-Star game.
Yeah.
And he was a 30-30 guy, and he was an MVP candidate. But there's more talent in this lineup behind him than there was last year.
Yeah.
So he can kind of take his foot off the pedal a little bit. Now, metaphorically, he's not legitimately going to slow himself down because he doesn't need to be as good. He still wants to be as good, but the pressure shouldn't be as great on him because there's other people that can pick up the slack if he's kind of trending downward.
Yeah.
But he's been trending downward most of the year.
Right.
And you want to see him pick things up. And, people are talking about, do you trade Mullins? Is he part of the future? Hate the arm in center field.
Oh, it's awful.
Hate the arm in center field. If there's a guy on second base with 2 outs and his base hit the center field, he's scoring every time. I'm not a big fan of the arm, but the defense is great. He's got 11 stolen bases, I believe, on the season, which is top 3, I think, in the major leagues. So he's still playing. He's still having a good season. You just hope that the offense can tick up a little bit because I don't want to see guys hit him below 250. You know what I mean? If a guy's hitting below 250, I want to see 40 home runs from him.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, generally the power guys are the ones that get on base a little less and hit for a lower batting average. And Cedric hit 30 home runs. I'm not sure if you can call him a power guy at this point.
Not. He's just a good hitter
He's a good hitter occasionally.
Who puts a good swing on a ball enough that he can get it out of the ballpark.
Yeah, and Cedric has done a lot less of that this year. And unfortunately, it just hasn't been the year that we expected. But again, imminent regression was... It was going to happen. It was always going to happen because going 30-30 and hitting 300, that's a really hard thing to do. And that's why he was the first Oriole to ever do it. And it's just kind of symbolic of what I think what you're going to see this year from him is he'll go on some of these hot streaks and then, he'll falter a little bit and he's going to be good in some scenarios and bad in others. And it certainly hasn't been, I think, what Cedric probably expected for himself. It hasn't been what the fans expected of him. But then again, you look at what we talked about all offseason is that regression was going to happen. He was never going to evade it. It's very hard to as a baseball player.
I still think that he's going to right the ship a little bit here and probably get up to that 260, 270 range by season's end. But right now, it's been a little bit of a struggle. You look at Ramon Urias. He was, and we knew this was coming. He was hitting into some tough luck.
Yeah,
hitting the hell out of the ball. His hard hit rate was up. His strikeout rate was down. But the hits just weren't dropping.
Yeah.
They're dropping now. He's in over 350 his last 7 games. He's in right around 280 his last 15 games. 3 more hits last night. The batting average, which was right around 200 all year, is now up to 235 now. So, look, some of these guys like Urias and Odor, they're hitting below 250, but their numbers are trending upward.
Right.
Whereas a guy like Cedric Mullins and Anthony Santander, they're hitting below 250 and they're trending downward. Ryan Mountcastle, where's the power been with him?
Yeah, a lot of chasing. He really. We talked about that medicine ball drill that Santander does. I'm not sure if Ryan does that, but if
he did,
he should do that again because he's been chasing every slider down and away. He just needs to lay off that pitch. I mean, these are sliders that are feet out of the zone that he's just flailing at, and he's not even making any sort of contact. And he's a great hitter. Ryan Mountcastle's a great pure hitter. He's got to lay off the slider down and away. I just want to go back to Cedric real quick, if that's okay, because I was just I was curious, looking at Cal Ripken's numbers from 1991 to 1992. And if you look at, there was a significant drop-off there. He went from a 940 OPS to a 689 OPS. So a lot of times...
Yeah, Cal only hit like 14 home runs in 92.
He exactly, 14 home runs, and that's 20 less than he did the previous year. And a lot of guys that have MVP-like seasons, and Ripken did win one in 91, they put a lot of pressure on themselves for the next season. So maybe that's what's happening with Cedric. He came back in 1993, put up a 748 OPS, hit 10 more home runs than he did the previous year. So that happens with MVP players. And I just wanted to finish that argument.
It's about staying within yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, guys like Mike Trout, they're going to put the numbers up every year because they're otherworldly.
Right.
You know what I mean? That doesn't mean that Cedric Mullins isn't a very good baseball player.
Right.
And you mentioned Cal, and Cal's a great example where you'd see him one year hit 275 with 26 homers and 100 RBIs, and the next year he hits 255 with 17 home runs.
Right.
And that's just, I think those were kind of the differential from 96 to 97 with Cal Ripken.
Roughly, yeah.
sometimes that happens. But
Sure.
if you stay within yourself, you play your game, and you're the player that you know that you are, you're gonna get back to the mean with your things. And we saw one extreme with Cedric last year.
Mm-hmm.
We saw the complete other extreme in 2019 with Cedric.
Yeah.
I think he's more so the guy that we saw in 2020 in that shortened season where he hit right around 270, 280. He led the league in infield singles, had a bunch of stolen bases, and he was a guy who he was a nice little player.
Right.
I think that's kind of the guy that he is, a guy who in a full season can hit 20, 25 homers. He might hit 30 every now and again.
Yeah.
He's going to steal you anywhere between 20 and 40 bases. He's going to play good defense in center field. He's going to get on base anywhere from a 330 to a 350 clip.
Yeah.
And that's a good player.
Sure.
That's a good player, and that's a guy who fits into your team if you have the stars around him.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Where he doesn't need to be a star, but he has the potential to be.
Right.
A star. And I think that's fine for Cedric Mullins. I don't expect anything else from Cedric Mullins, and anything that he gives me above that is a bonus, in my opinion. Like all last year was a bonus. He was like the one thing that kept us tuned in for the Orioles in 2021. And I think he can get back there. I think we're going to see some hot stretches where he looks like that guy. And I think we're going to see some stretches where he looks like the guy we've been seeing the last couple of weeks. So I'm not too concerned about Cedric Mullins. Austin Hayes, man, that dude, he's becoming a star. Right before our eyes. This is a guy who is finally, and we saw it the second half of last year when he got back and he was healthy. He's been healthy this year, knock on wood. What he's doing at the plate, he's a dude.
Yeah.
He's a dude. You know, what more can you say about him? What's he hitting? 290, 280?
295, I believe.
He's hitting 295. He's got 5 home runs. He's got, 22, 23 RBIs.
1.7 WAR, 824 OPS. I mean, the numbers are certainly there for Austin Hayes. And even last year, where he was a 3.1 WAR player, he only put up a 769 OPS, and he's well above that now. So, Austin Hayes has been, every facet of the game for him has been amazing. I mean, frankly, the guy, he's even chasing less and walking more. I mean, he's already got 15 walks, where last year he only walked 28 times in the whole season. So he should be able to eclipse that this year by quite a few, and that's going to be impressive, hopefully.
Just to derail for a second here, the Orioles have selected the contract for Cody Sedlock and for Denny Reyes, and they have optioned Bo Salster down to AAA Norfolk, and they've designated Jahmai Jones for assignment.
Okay.
This right after he just had Tommy John surgery. I didn't even know he was hurt.
I did not either.
Jahmai Jones just had successful Tommy John surgery the other day, and now he for his troubles, he gets designated DFA'd.
Yeah, it makes sense, I guess. Considering the number of players that are available to be DFA'd on this roster has certainly dwindled in the past few months because of how much better the Orioles have gotten talent-wise. So it's certainly not a huge surprise to me that a guy like Jahmai Jones is the one to go.
And look, guys, Jahmai Jones, he and the rest of his family are athletic freaks.
Mm-hmm.
This was never going to be a major league player.
No.
He was never going to be one of those guys that came in and played second base 150 games a year and hit 290 with 15 home runs. He just wasn't going to be that guy.
Right.
And look, chances are, because he just had Tommy John surgery, he's going to clear waivers and he'll be outrighted, and the Orioles will put him on the 60-day minor league.
Right. I was going to say, I highly doubt someone claims him. That would be a huge surprise.
I just don't see him as part of the Orioles' future plans. And maybe a utility guy that can play the outfield and the infield, and they can use some of that athleticism and that speed, but I just don't think the bat's ever going to play. And I don't think he's... Maybe he can be something in the outfield, but I don't think he's ever going to be an infielder that you can hang your hat on defensively. So the DFA, a little surprising because he just had Tommy John, but also not surprising because he hasn't been performing, and they need the roster spot for Sedlock, for Reyes, and for other guys that are going to be coming up here in the days and weeks to come. Anyway, back to Austin Hayes and the season that he's putting together. And this is a guy who I think has 30 homer potential. This is a guy who I look at, and I mean, that was my bold prediction for this year, was that Austin Hayes was going to hit 30 home runs. I think he is firmly in the Orioles' future plans. What was he, 26 years old?
He's 26.
He's 26 years old. He's hitting 295. He's got power. He's got great defense. He's fast enough to be a good base runner. You don't expect him to steal 20 bases. He might be able to steal you 10 to 12 in a season.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things for me that I've been questioning is why hasn't he stole a single one yet this year? Maybe just trying to be careful, stay healthy? That could be why.
I mean, you saw... back in 2018, he broke his thumb sliding into second base on a stolen base. Then right after he got sent back to Twin Lakes,
right?
To minor league spring training, and then just the other week he slid headfirst into first base and he got stepped on and cleated. He hasn't had great success as a base runner as far as staying healthy. And maybe it's like, you know what? We don't need you to be that guy. We've got Mateo and Mullins to be that guy. You don't need to be that guy. You need to be the guy that plays great defense 150 games a year and hits the ball out of the ballpark when we need a big home run like he did last night. And so far, that's what Austin Hayes has been, and I love to see it because do you remember 2019 when he came up at the end of the year and hit over 300 and he infused some electricity into this team? He made that superstar catch in center field like Mike Trout, and this is that that's the player that we saw. The player that we saw then is the player that we're seeing now, and the player we expected him to be after his big 2017 minor league season. First guy from the 2016 draft to make it to the major leagues. And he's finally, right before our eyes, he's becoming a star.
Well, you know he's been my favorite player for a long time throughout the minors. And when he got called up in 2019, I actually made, the day he got called up, I drove, I believe, it was his first home game. I was like, I have to go see Austin Hayes. And he had like 3 hits that night or something. He was, and I was like, this is a guy. Like, this is such a guy that's going to be in the future plans for the Orioles. I mean, you talk about 5-tool talents, and he truly is one. Maybe the speed isn't quite what it was in the minors. I mean, I think you would have seen him maybe steal a few more bases if he had that same kind of speed, but the defense is excellent. The arm, pure 80 out of 80 on the 20 to 80 scale as far as the arm goes. The power's certainly been there. I think the wall's probably taken away a few of his home runs this year, but 5 is not a terrible start through 42 games. You look at what he does with the bat, clutch hitting. He's getting on base almost at a 308 last year on base percentage, 362 this year. Quite a significant improvement there. Austin Hayes, like you said, he's a gamer. He plays hard. You love everything about Austin Hayes, and he's a 5-tool talent that's getting it done across the board. And frankly, he's by far been the best player for the Orioles this year, and I think that it's almost impossible for the Orioles to say at this point, this guy's not in our future plans. He has to be. I mean, he's only 26 years old. He turns 27 on July 5th, so it's not that far away. But look, this guy is really kind of a complete package, and it's the first one that I wouldn't say the first one, but one of the first ones the Orioles have found through this rebuild that they can really count on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What he's done this year has been nothing short of amazing.
Yeah.
And like you said, he's the guy, when he comes up, you know he's getting a big hit.
Yeah.
You know he's done it time and time again this year. You need a big hit, Austin Hayes is going to deliver for you. Yeah. And he did that last night. So now, as far as we were talking a little bit about Odor and Mateo and Urias, and right now that seems to be your second baseman, shortstop, and third baseman. Yeah. And Urias, maybe the arm's gotten a little bit better, but I haven't liked the arm strength. The glove's been really good at third base, but the arm strength, it seems like he struggles to get the ball across the diamond. Maybe that's just a lack of focus, or maybe him not realizing, hey, I need to put a little bit more on this throw.
Yeah.
Urias and Odor, the bats are coming around. Mateo's been on the downward trend despite that 3-run homer last night. Odor, there's no way he's part of this team in the future.
No, I mean, I know what Stan said about him possibly being here for 1 or 2 more years. I don't really see it.
I think they trade him.
Maybe. I mean, certainly, his OPS is still not over 700, and he's still batting .237. The power, it's only 3 home runs so far. So I don't know what you'd really get for him, but maybe. I mean, they were able to trade Freddie Galvis, so maybe you can trade a guy like Odor and get something.
Right. And then Mateo, it's a week-to-week thing with him. The talent's there. You know what I mean? The chase rate is just too high. I mean, his last at-bat last night, he swung at some awful pitches. He swung at some awful pitches. And for his speed, he doesn't get on base enough.
Right. I mean, that's certainly the issue with Mateo right now, is just that he's not getting on base to be able to use his best tool, which is his speed. And we talk about an 80 arm with Austin Hayes. You've got an 80 runner in Jorge Mateo who can literally steal basically any base he wants off any catcher. I mean, he could steal one off Prime, Yadier, Molina in a second. I mean, this guy's that fast. And it's too bad because, we did talk weeks ago about how good we thought Jorge Mateo was becoming, and that he was finally realizing his potential by playing every day, and that this guy had unbelievable upside and what he could do for the Orioles in the future, and maybe not even as a starter, but as just a bench guy who can come off the bench and give you maybe play 3-4 times a week and give you some really good offense and really good defense and the speed, of course, on the base paths. And it hasn't looked like that. But I'm not willing to write him off yet. I've got a lot left hope-wise with Jorge Mateo.
And look, at a certain point, as recently as a week ago, he had the highest line drive rate in the majors.
Is that true? I did not know that.
Yeah, as recently as a week ago. And Trey Mancini's up there, too. Trey Mancini is, I think, 5th in hard hit balls this year.
I wouldn't doubt it. He's gotten into a lot of bad luck.
He's fifth in God, I can't remember what it is, but I think barrels and exit velocity, the combination of that. Yeah. I can't remember exactly what it is, but I saw it last night that he was fifth, and along the lines of guys like Bryce Harper. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So the numbers are up there. And I just completely got off track. Oh, back to Jorge Mateo. It's guys slump, right?
Yeah.
3 for his last 32. You hope that the home run kind of gets him off the schneid a little bit there. You also have to the slump started right after he came back from that shoulder injury after he got kind of tackled by Spencer Torkelson trying to run down the first base. Maybe he's still coming back from that. Maybe that's still ailing him a little bit. Maybe. I don't think this guy's ever going to be a 280 hitter.
No, I don't ever see that either. I was looking at his Baseball Savant page and some of the percentile rankings that he's in. Sprint speed, 100. Not surprising there. Outs above average, 90. That's exceptionally good, showing his defense his range is unbelievable, and which we know because he's 100. He's an 80 grade runner and 100th percentile sprint speed guy. So, but the batting metrics are certainly a lot worse. I mean, 48 expected batting average. That's not terrible. We're almost right down the middle there. But his walk percentage is 7, K percentage 9, chase rate 6, whiff percentage 6, hard hit percentage 15. So certainly some not so promising numbers on the Baseball Savant side and some of these percentiles that they calculate analytically. So,
and this is a dude he needs to learn to bunt and learn to use his speed. You know, a slow grounder it can be an infield hit for him.
Right.
You know, and it looks like a line drive in the box score. And that's not to say that you can intentionally hit a slow grounder. You know what I mean? But I'd like to see him use and learn to take some pitches.
Yeah.
Get on base, man. Your biggest asset is your speed.
Right.
Get on base.
Yeah.
If you want to be part of the team's future, you've got to learn to get on base so you can affect the game with your legs. And you've got to be able to hit above 200.
Right.
You got to be able to hit above 200. And right now he's just really struggling. Now, Gunnar Henderson, a guy that's not struggling, hitting over 300 down at Bowie, on base percentage above 450, more walks than strikeouts, tearing the cover off the ball. Now, I was reading an article from a Q&A from Dan Connolly, and he expects him to spend a good chunk of the year, or at least he expects him to spend a good chunk of the year at AA, but he thinks that maybe that timeline's a little expedited because he's been playing so well at Bowie. But he doesn't think he even sniffs some majors this year. Maybe gets the last 2 months or 3 months at Norfolk. This is a guy who we already knew was in the Orioles' plans, but how quickly is he in the Orioles' plans?
It's a great question. I'm not sure. It's just a tough thing to kind of put into perspective because of everything that the Orioles have as far as when they promote guys, they take so long to promote guys because they're so careful with everyone. So I don't know. What's your guess is the best date?
I think that he probably ends up in Norfolk by late June, early July.
Yeah.
If not a little bit sooner. But I think that he spends now. Look, if he gets to Norfolk and he's hitting 350, he's not going to hit 350 in Norfolk.
What are his numbers currently that we're at Bowie at the moment?
At Bowie, I believe he's hitting 301 with a 457 on base percentage.
And there's like 8 home runs, something like that. I mean, he's been certainly tearing the cover off the ball. And it's just with the Orioles being so careful with everyone. I don't know. And when Prieto got moved up to Bowie, I thought maybe this is the time that Gunnar finally makes it up. But
I think they're going to move Gunnar and Westberg at the same time. So Gunnar Henderson has a 986 OPS.
That'll play.
Yeah, he's got his batting average is 295. 8 home runs, 28 RBIs. He literally leads in every offensive category.
Yeah, I mean
35 runs scored. The guy is where is
I guess it's just balancing being careful with a guy who's still 21 years old.
451 on base percentage.
I don't want to say throw him into the fire, but I just think they want to be so careful. And the Orioles have taken so long to promote guys. Like you look at Prieto hitting 350 or whatever he was hitting in Aberdeen, and it took them frankly a long time to promote him to Bowie, even though he's 22 years old and frankly deserved the promotion. And I think it's going to be the same way with Gunnar Henderson, where he could be that 460 on base percentage or whatever it is, but they just still want to be so careful. And I don't necessarily disagree with that mantra. I don't think it's a bad idea. I just think with the Orioles and the way they operate, it's certainly a little bit different than a lot of other teams where they're going to take more time because the guy's 21 years old. And I think that's the biggest thing with that.
And look, is he even 21 yet?
He might be.
I think he's only 20.
You might be right.
I'm pretty. No, yeah, his birthday is June 29th.
So he's about to turn. Yeah,
he turns 21 on June 29th. This is a guy, he's still one of the youngest players in Double-A, tearing the cover off the ball, hitting the ball out of the ballpark, getting on base at a 450 clip, slugging almost. He almost has a 1,000 OPS, 986, and we've heard it before. If you can hit like that at Double-A, you're going to hit like that in the big leagues at some point. We saw how much he struggled when he got to Double-A last year, or when he got to High A last year, and they only had 5 games at Double-A. We saw how much he struggled, and he went and worked on things in the offseason. The walk-to-strikeout rate is significantly better. More walks and strikeouts, as we mentioned. This is a guy who I could see him coming up next year. I think he starts.
Sure.
I think he starts next year at AAA, but I think it's kind of like an Adley or Grayson Rodriguez type of thing, where go down there and get some success for a couple of months, and then if you're doing what we expect you to do, you'll be here.
Right, and he could be the guy that replaces Mateo in the long run, and it could be sooner rather than later, like you said. It could be as soon as next year. I was doing some digging on Mateo on Baseball Savant just for fun here. They have a player's similarity. I'm not sure. I can never say that word. Similarity. I can't say that word.
There's no U in it.
Player similarity thing here for where they essentially compare batting metrics and compare hitters. So the closest hitter to Jorge Mateo statistically through all these analytics that Baseball Savant uses is Michael A. Taylor. And that's not exactly a ringing endorsement.
Yeah, Michael A. Taylor was once a highly touted prospect for the
He
Nationals.
was.
His career has amounted to a nice career as a fourth outfielder. You know what I mean? He had a nice run in the playoffs a couple of years ago, but he's never been that guy that they expected him to be. I remember hearing about him in 2014, and they were like, oh, Michael A. Taylor, and he just never became anything.
Right. And if Jorge Mateo ends up being Michael A. Taylor, Gunnar Henderson could be here sooner than you expect, because the Orioles, I mean, again, when we talk about with Rutschman being promoted, they're flipping the switch and saying that we're getting ready to compete, we're getting closer. If you're running out a guy like Michael A. Taylor every day, then I'm not sure how much closer you are to competing. Gunnar Henderson certainly gets you a lot closer.
Yeah,
but they're not going to rush him.
And Gunnar Henderson, when he gets here, is completely in his hands.
Right.
You know, if Gunnar Henderson hits the ground running at AAA whenever he gets there, and is putting up the same numbers or similar numbers,
I just cannot
there's
say
no
that
you.
word.
It's just similar.
It's a tough one.
Similarities. If he's putting up similar numbers at AAA to Bowie, he might force their hand. But I firmly believe that Jordan Westburg and Gunnar Henderson are going to get here right around the same time, and you're going to look at they're going to make up 2/3 of your infielders that aren't first basemen.
Yeah.
And whether it's Urias playing second, Jordan playing shortstop, and Gunnar playing third, or some combination of that, I think that's what you're looking at next year.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
I mean, Jordan Westberg's been tearing. He got off to a slow start, but he's been tearing the cover off the ball the last 2 weeks. To the point now where you believe that he's kind of that guy, the same guy that we saw from last year. He just got off to a slow start.
Right.
So,
100%. And I was talking to Eric Garfield a little bit, and he was talking about Prieto defensively, and it's going to be interesting to see where he fits into that Bowie infield, because Eric was telling me that the defense has not been stellar for Prieto.
They've been playing him at second, short, and third, and the knock on him was that the arm strength wasn't there. So I think he's more of a second baseman than anything else. What I would like to see them do is just put him at second base, leave him there, and hone the skills there, because the bat's going to play.
Yeah.
The bat's going to play.
Bat's definitely going to play. He's an elite contact hitter from what we've seen, but it's just going to be interesting to see where he slots in with the glove. And I'm actually going to be at Bowie tonight, going to see the team, and this will be my first in-person look at Prieto. And then obviously with Gunnar Henderson and Westberg and Ortiz, there's a lot to see there at Bowie at the moment. So it's interesting to see how Bowie's going to fit all these guys into their infield and get them all playing time. But like you said, I mean, they might promote Westberg and Henderson at the same time. That could certainly be the option for them, where they come up, and because they've frankly been kind of attached at the hip the whole way through.
And if you look at AAA, I mean, are you really worried about them taking playing time from Kelvin Gutierrez?
I'm certainly not worried about that.
And I mean, who's playing second base for the Tides?
Is it not? Well, Richie Martin's playing shortstop, but I know he's played a little bit of second base down there as well. I'm not sure who the everyday second baseman is. It's probably
I think it was Jahmai Jones. And Rylan Bannon might be playing there.
Bannon could be there, yeah.
They had Gutierrez over at first base the other day. The point is, you don't have anybody that's blocking these guys in Norfolk. You don't have anybody where you're like, well, we'd promote them, but we really want to get a longer look at Bannon at third base and Gutierrez at first base.
Right.
That's not a thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I could totally see Gunnar and Westberg getting promoted at the same time, but what I want to see is if you do promote them to Norfolk at the same time, tell Gunnar, you're our third baseman.
Yeah.
Jordan, you're our shortstop. Richie Martin, you're our second baseman. Or Richie, you're our shortstop. Jordan, you're our second baseman.
Yeah.
And leave them there so that we know where they're going to play when they get to the big league level.
Right.
The time is fast approaching where these guys are making moves.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
And that's why I titled today's Orioles banter segment Near Future. Because the future is right around the corner. In some aspects, it's already here.
Right, and it's coming. It's coming for sure. And we talk about Joey Ortiz just for a second here because he's a guy that, Keith Laws is very, very high on Joey Ortiz.
Defensively, and Gunnar Henderson said defensively he's major league ready.
Yeah, and that's why I think that out of all of these guys, Joey Ortiz might be the first one who ends up making it to the big leagues. I don't really see Joey Ortiz as a long-term piece personally because I don't see the bat coming along enough to play as an everyday guy. But, the future's right around the corner. Joey Ortiz could be in the majors this year. I would not be surprised at all. Henderson, probably a lesser chance. Westberg, lesser chance. But, look, Joey Ortiz probably is really close because of that glove and being so advanced.
Right. We got to catch our second break here. When we come back in on the batter round, we're going to have Jim Callis from MLB Pipeline and talk a little bit of Major League Draft and some of these Orioles prospects. That next on the batter round.
Baseball is back, and so is the spring seasonal menu at Glory Days Grill. Start with the opener, flash-fried pork belly with our popular Korean No. 2 sauce, and take a bite out of the Crunch Burger, topped with home run sauce, white American cheese, and house-made chips. It also features irresistible options like a baseball-cut sirloin with blue cheese, grilled shrimp with garlic butter, and a strawberry salmon salad. And then there's the closer, the Cracker Jack Sundae with a waffle, ice cream, and Cracker Jack. This menu will be gone at your neighborhood Glory Days Grill. GloryDaysGrill.com to find out more. Great food, good sports.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Luke Jackson profiles Orioles catcher Adley Rutschman, diving into where his passion for baseball and for catching comes from and how he uses that passion to elevate those around him in the Orioles organization. Also inside, Bo Smolka takes a look at how the Ravens' 2021 draft picks can make progress in year two, and Glenn Clark offers a very unique tribute to former rival Mike Krzyzewski that all Maryland fans can appreciate. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows that the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn, over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
Answering Baltimore's calls for help, running in when others run away, working together toward one shared vision for a thriving city. That's your Baltimore Police. But the department needs more good people, people like you. Join a proud new generation of Baltimore Police and make an active difference in your community. Start with competitive wages and excellent benefits on day one. Join for good at bpdrecruit.org.
All right, we are back here live on the Bat Around on a beautiful Saturday morning in Baltimore. Just want to remind you, the Bat Around is brought to you today by the Baltimore Police Department. Join a proud new generation of Baltimore Police and make an active difference in your community. Start with competitive wages and excellent benefits on day one. Join for good at bpdrecruit.org. Joining us now from MLB.com and MLBpipeline.com, his latest mock draft is up for MLB Pipeline. He is Jim Callis, and he's live with us here on the Bat Around. Jim, it's Paul and Zach. Good morning to you. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing? Nice comeback for your Orioles yesterday.
Yeah, one hell of a game. I was keeping track. I was at my other job, and I kept looking at it, and the guys kept inching closer and closer, and then finally overtook him. It was a hell of a game. Now, Jim, let's get right into it. The Orioles, they obviously have the number one pick in the draft this year. The consensus number one talent is Drew Jones, although there's anywhere from 5 to 7 guys that could legitimately be taken number one overall by the Orioles. In your latest mock draft, you have the Orioles taking prep shortstop Jackson Holliday at number one overall. Tell us a little bit about Jackson Holliday, and is this who you believe they'll take, or is it just something you were doing as kind of an activity for your mock draft?
Yeah, I'll answer the second question first. It's still so early with the draft. It's even later this year because the All-Star game is a week later, and I guess it's a week. I don't want to say it's 7. I think it's 7 weeks from tomorrow is when the draft is.
Right.
And the Orioles play close to the vest, so I think anybody who would suggest that they know what the Orioles are going to do or have great insight on what the Orioles are going to do would be stretching it. I mean, I went with what I thought was logical. I didn't necessarily do it as here's a thought exercise. What if it's Jackson Holliday? But there's a lot of discussion. I mean, you guys know, you cover the team. Are the Orioles going to look to cut a big discount at number one, like they did with Heston Kjerstad and they did with Colton Cowser? Or are they going to take the number one, or they think it's the best guy, like they did with Adley? So, you can, whatever way. And it's funny because, people in baseball, I get it from both ways. I have teams at the top of the draft who are more vested in who the Orioles take. I'm hearing from them. They think the Orioles are going to take a legitimate talent there. You're going to save money because the pick's worth $8.9 million. Nobody's going to get $8.9 million bonus with that pick. So they're going to be able to save money anyway, but still take a really good player. But then I have other people who with teams who are they think it's all smoke screen and they're going to take cut a deal with Brooks Lee or something. So I don't think anybody really knows because it's too early and they play close to the vest. But, with Holliday, I know they have scouted him very heavily. They've scouted Drew Jones very heavily. But, Jackson is the son of Matt Holliday. And which I think maybe the most interesting thing about him is, he was a good prospect coming into the season. And, he struggled a little bit on the showcase circuit last summer. I think, he tried to do too much and hit home runs and his swing got a little jacked up. And so he was kind of I had him as more, for the guys I talked to, and as a lot of people in baseball, I think, had him more as good player, kind of a second round talent. And, you think of his dad's so big and physical, and Jackson has just started to get bigger and stronger, and he's literally gotten better in every phase of the game. I mean, his swing's better. He's hitting the ball harder and farther. He's gotten faster. His arm looks stronger. He looks smoother at shortstop. Coming into the year, I think most people, didn't say he couldn't play shortstop, but questioned it, and now nobody's questioning it. And he's really, really good. I mean, he's got a chance. I think the difference between him and Drew Jones, if you want to simplify it, is I think Drew Jones has a chance to be at least plus across the board, and Jackson Holliday would be at least solid tools across the board, although Holliday is the shortstop and Jones is a center fielder. If Holliday doesn't go 1, I don't think he gets past the Rangers at 3.
All right, and he's certainly somebody who was not on my radar until a few weeks ago, and he's kind of burst onto the scene here. And you mentioned his father is Matt Holliday, and I loved Matt Holliday as a player. That's some good pedigree that Jackson Holliday is coming from. Now, you mentioned that he struggled a little bit on the showcase circuit last summer. Somebody else who struggled a little bit was Elijah Green. And Elijah Green, this time last year, people were talking about he's the number one pick in the draft in 2022, and then had a lot of swing and miss in his swing, to the point where he's kind of fallen, I'm not going to say out of the conversation, but to the back end of the conversation for number one overall. What have you seen from Elijah Green this year? Has he improved on the swing and miss, and is he somebody who could put himself back into that conversation?
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, I do think, and again, I mean, the Orioles are playing it close to the vest, and it's 2 months out, so I mean, it's not like they know either. When I think of the type of high school player that I could see Michael Elias and Orioles taking, a guy who's a more polished hitter, like a Drew Jones or Jackson Holliday or Termar Johnson, seems to fit that more than Elijah Green would. Now, that said, Elijah has really helped himself with a really good spring. I mean, I think you're still going to have some swing and miss concerns. I think it doesn't bother you as much because he's looked better this spring. And because he's at IMG Academy, they actually play a pretty good schedule, so he's facing good competition. You know, it's not like, hey, Elijah Green. I'm not taking anything away from Jackson Holiday. I don't know how many pro caliber pitchers Jackson Holiday's facing this spring, you know, in Oklahoma.
Right.
You know, he's teeing off on guys who aren't going to be playing pro ball, and Elijah's facing better competition. So I think the swing looks better, the swing decisions look better. I do think guys feel better about Elijah Green than they did, say, at the end of last summer. You know, I have not heard as much buzz for him going to Orioles #1. Now, I could see if Drew Jones went 1, I could see Elijah Green going 2 to the Diamondbacks. And I do think he probably goes – I can't see him getting past the top 5 or 6 picks. But, yeah, he has helped himself. He just does not strike me as the type of guy the Orioles would pick 1-1.
Yeah, and you mentioned Drew Jones, and we had your colleague Jonathan Mayo on Glenn Clark Radio, also for Press Box Sports, a couple of weeks ago. And he said that Drew Jones, while it's not the consensus that he's #1 pick, it is a consensus of all the players in this draft. He has the highest chance of reaching levels of a Fernando Tatis, a Ronald Acuna, a Juan Soto type of caliber talent. If that's the case, why would he not go #1 overall to the Orioles if he's got that much of a ceiling?
Yeah, I mean, I think Elijah Green probably has the highest ceiling in the draft, but Drew Jones probably has the highest ceiling, combination of ceiling and probability he gets there, if that makes sense. You know, he reminds you of his dad, I mean, which is a kind of a lazy comp, but I mean, he's a, great center fielder, really strong arm, plus runner, tons of power. And he's improved. There weren't as concerns like there were with Elijah Green, but he's improved too. He's making better swing decisions. The swing looks a little bit better this year. And it's like, it just comes down to, I mean, the #1 pick is not always purely about ability. Sometimes teams want a college player versus a high school player. I don't know if this is true, but I mean, I know one of the teams picking behind the Orioles has heard, and again, he wasn't putting any credence like, oh, this is a lock, but there's talk out there. Maybe the Orioles don't want an outfielder; they want an infielder, over an outfielder. So that would lead you away from Drew Jones. It could be, again, you're planning out your budget and your bonus pool. And like I said, I don't think anybody is getting $8.9 million, which is the value of that slot. So, I don't know what it's going to take to sign Drew Jones. Let's say Drew Jones was going to cost you $8 million at the #1 pick. Well, I mean, we're talking about the Orioles who've cut deals at #2 and #5. And what if Drew Jones would cost him $8 million? But I'm just making these numbers up. I have no knowledge. But let's say Jackson Holiday would cost him $7.5 million, and let's say Brooks Lee would cost him, from Cal Poly would cost him $7 million. And let's say Jackson or not Jackson Berry. I was conflating Jackson Berry with Jackson Holiday. The kid from LSU, Jake Berry.
Right.
Jacob Berry. I don't know why I was struggling with Jackson. Anyway, Jacob Berry, who might be the best all-around hitter, but comes with defensive questions. Let's say he might cost you $6.5 million. Like maybe there's a scenario where the Orioles say, hey, you know what? We really like Brooks Lee a lot, and we can save an extra $1 million and then do this. Or we love Jacob Berry's bat, so we could save an extra $1.5 million. So I think that's a scenario. Something like that could come into play. And just to put Drew Jones into perspective, I do think he's the consensus best player in the draft. I think most teams will tell you he's the guy, but it's not. And he's really good, but it's not that Steven Strasburg, Bryce Harper, towering above the rest of the draft. It's this generational talent. He's really good, and he's the best guy, but he's not that once in a decade type of guy either. And then there's some other talented players also, to where you're not sacrificing a lot in talent, but you might get, you might save even more money. So I think that's how, that could possibly play out.
Well, and you mentioned Jacob Berry, and that's who, again, your colleague Jonathan Mayo, he has, in his latest mock, he has the Orioles taking Jacob Berry, #1 overall. And like you said, maybe the best bat in the draft. Or the
I think Jonathan actually had him taking Jackson Holiday with his last one, but that's fine.
Maybe it was two ones ago. He had
yeah.
Jacob Berry, and that's a guy.
a lot of bat, not a lot of defense. And the Orioles kind of already have that with Ryan Mountcastle. Now, look, you don't draft based on what you have. You draft based on what you feel like you may need in the future and the best player for your franchise. But Jacob Berry would seem to be a bit of a head-scratcher to me at number 1 overall, considering that he doesn't have the glove to go along with the bat.
Yeah, but, I mean, yes and no. I mean, I wouldn't take him number 1. I do think he's the best bet. Like, if you were to ask me who's going to have the best offensive numbers of any player in this draft, I think Jacob Berry would be the best bet. He's got the track record in college. He's a switch hitter. I think he's going to hit for a lot of average. I think he's going to hit for a lot of power. He draws walks. He controls the strike zone. He had, I haven't checked his stats recently, but he had almost as many home runs as strikeouts this year. He's really, really talented. And you can make a case, if he went 1-1, part of the case would be that you would be cutting a deal. Because if he doesn't go 1, he might go in that 6, 7, 8 range. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, again, if I were an Orioles fan, I probably wouldn't necessarily want to hear this after, they took Heston Kjerstad to save a bunch of money. They took Colton Cowser to save a bunch of money. And I know personally, if I'm picking 1-1, I just want to take the best player. Right. I figure out who that is. I take the best player and go from there. But, I think if the Orioles were to take Jacob Berry 1-1, the argument would be that, A, he might, have the best offensive numbers of anybody. Can he play third base? Probably stretch. Can he play corner outfield? He could probably play corner out. I think he's better defensively than Mountcastle. I mean, that's not, real high bar, but, he might be a first baseman DH and you'd like that, but you wouldn't like that as much. But if you took him number 1, the argument would be, A, we think he's going to produce the best offensive numbers of any player in the draft. And, if he does that, if he's first baseman, that's pretty valuable. And B, if we take him number 1, again, I'm just pulling out round numbers, it might save him $1.5 million, $2 million compared to what somebody else would take that they would then put into other picks later in the draft. And my counter to that would be, as you guys know, they didn't get the guy. They 2 years ago when they took Kjerstad, who, for no fault of their own, has been sick and hasn't played, the guy they wanted to get with their second pick was Nick Bitsko, and he didn't make it to their second pick. Now they got Colby Mayo and Carter Baumler, and Mayo looks really good, so maybe that works out. And then last year, when they took Cowser, they wanted Jed Fabian, and they didn't get Jed Fabian. So that's the tricky part. When you start cutting deals at the top of the draft, you can't guarantee you're going to get the guy that you want. You have to have plan B and plan C, but it's not just hey, if we take Jacob Berry, I'm just making it Dylan Lesko, we can drive him down to our next pick because he's coming off Tommy John, even though he might have been the best pitcher in the draft. We'll get him. Dylan Lesko's probably not getting to your next pick. Whoever the target is, you just have no way to guarantee that guy gets to you.
Right. No, absolutely. And I remember well when they wanted Bitsko and he just wasn't there. I think it was a race that took him a few picks before the Orioles picked again. So I definitely remember that. It's all really a crapshoot when you go into the draft. Now, look, there's all the excitement around who the Orioles are going to take number 1 overall, and all the excitement when that pick is finally announced. And then it immediately shifts from they got him to when's he going to get here? Which of these players do you think has the fastest rise to the major league level? Is there any of these high school players that you think could be here at 19 or 20 years old, like a Juan Soto?
No, I don't. If you had a guy like that, I think he would be the obvious number 1 pick.
Right.
Even a guy like Drew, to me, I'm just taking it. If I'm taking the best player at 1-1, I'm taking Drew Jones. Realistically, I think if you took Drew Jones this year, you're probably looking at him in the big leagues. The fastest would be toward the end of 2024, and probably more realistically, the beginning of 2025. But even the beginning of 2025, and that would be on the fast track, he'd be 21 years old,
right?
Because he's fairly young. And then you still, the service time considerations really haven't gone away. There's incentives now to not delay guys, and I know it was pandemic related, and I know there was an injury, but if you told me, if we'd had this conversation in 2019, who should the Orioles take 1-1, how quickly would it be there? I would have said they should take Adley Rutschman, and he'll be ready for the big leagues by the end of 2020, and at worst, he'll be up there very early in 2021. And I would have been a year off. Now granted, there was a lot of extenuating circumstances there,
right.
But, I think if you're looking for a guy to get there the quickest, honestly, it would probably be Brooks Lee or Jacob Berry coming out of college. I mean, I think both those guys, like Brooks Lee probably winds up at second base in the long run rather than shortstop. Maybe shortstop. But, Brooks Lee has grown up around the game. His dad's a college coach, his college coach. His uncle was a first-round pick. Brooks Lee, you're just basically rolling out there. And I think he'll be in the big leagues. Again, you have to worry about service time considerations. Whoever takes Brooks Lee could be in the big leagues by the end of next year, beginning of 2024 at the latest. I think those guys could get there pretty quick. But again, I think part of that depends too. Like, are the Orioles contending? Because the Orioles aren't contending in 2023. Let's say they took Brooks Lee. What's your incentive to promote him in August or September? You really don't have one. You're better off waiting until the next year.
Right. No, I totally get that. Now, before we let you go, some of the guys who have already been drafted by the Orioles who are making their case for the big league levels. We'll start with Grayson Rodriguez, 23 1/3 innings pitched, 3 earned runs, 38 Ks his last 4 starts. He's gone 81, 86, 87, and 88 pitches his last 4 starts. What more does this guy need to prove at the minor league level?
Nothing. I think you could have made a case. I do think if, let's say, the Orioles were contending, he might have made their opening day rotation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's much. Now that said, I hate harping on this, but it's just the business of baseball. That they're probably we're at the point where it behooves them to wait a couple weeks, and then you remove any possibility that he winds up being like a Super 2 eligible arbitration guy in a couple of years. So, but no, I don't think there's much. I don't think you could really dispute the notion that he would have been one of the most talented pitchers, if not the most talented pitchers, on their opening day rotation. I don't think he didn't have a ton of upper level experience, but what upper level experience he had, he dominated. Like if you'd asked him to make the jump to the big leagues, to start this season, I think that would have been fine. I wouldn't have been worried that he's only pitched 18 games in AA and none in AAA. So I think he's pretty much ready. It's just a matter of time. I thought it would have been kind of cool if they had Adley and Grayson make their debuts on the same day.
Yeah, I did too.
That would have, I think, blown the lid off of Camden Yards. But I think, those guys, I feel like Adley's caught the majority of Grayson's starts since he's been in pro ball. It's gonna be cool whenever that is, and I would assume it will be sometime in June. Adley will already be there. It'll still be pretty cool to have that be the battery. But I think he's basically ready whenever the Orioles, want him to come. I honestly don't know. What could Grayson come up with a 6th pitch or something? And he already has 4 pitches that are plus or better. I think he can even turn the slider into a cutter if he wants, and he throws a ton of strikes. I don't know what else. Maybe he needs a knuckleball or something that's the final step. But he's definitely ready.
Is he a guy who can hit the ground running at the major league level? Do you think that he can be really good as a rookie? And further, is he kind of like a Walker Buehler type of ace or better?
Yeah, it's funny. He is kind of like Buehler in terms of that he's got a bunch of stuff and a bunch of different pitches and he throws strikes, but he's so much more physical than Walker. He should be able to hit the ground running. That said, you just never know with pitchers or rookies of any sort. Sometimes guys get to the big leagues and rather than realize, hey, what I do got me to the big leagues, that, they sometimes think, hey, I've got to take this to an extra level to succeed, and I've got to throw harder or try to paint the corners, and sometimes get in trouble that way. Now, I'm not claiming I have intimate knowledge of Grayson Rodriguez's mindset, but when I've talked to him, he seems like a pretty, low heartbeat guy. He doesn't seem to get rattled or excited on the mound. So you would think, but I'd say even if he struggled when he got there, I wouldn't read too much into that. Look, it's a small sample size. Adley Rutschman's hitting 200. I don't know if anybody's panicking, but it just takes time to adjust. So to answer your question, he is equipped to hit the ground running and succeed, but rookies sometimes need a little bit of time to acclimate. Now, and that said, his stuff's so good and he throws strikes. If he came out and dominated right away, it wouldn't shock me at all.
All right. I think that's something that our listeners like to hear. And then finally, before we let you go, Jim, Gunnar Henderson, having a special season for Bowie. 295 with a 451 on base percentage, a 986 OPS. He's walking more than he's striking out after having 56 walks to 143 strikeouts last year at three different levels, excuse me. How good is Gunnar Henderson? Is this a guy who you think could be in the Orioles' big league plans as early as next spring? What kind of player are we looking at with Gunnar Henderson?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can make the case that if he keeps this up, whether he stays in Double-A the whole year, or goes to Triple-A. I mean, if he keeps this up, I would think you'd have to from Triple-A mid-season. Yeah, he could be on course for the big leagues next year. I mean, again, you have the whole surface time considerations and whether they're contending, but no, I've liked him a lot. I mean, Johnson and I split up the country for the draft, and I have the South, and I had Alabama, and I really liked Gunnar, and I thought he was a potential first-round pick. I loved the pick at the time they made it. He was a young guy. I think he turned 18 after the draft that year. And, what he's done to me is actually pretty remarkable considering the fact that he lost 500 at-bats in 2020. And,
right.
They were pretty aggressive with him last year. He came out and tore up low A for a month, and it's boom, you're, high A at age 20. And, he had 230 there, but he drew some walks. He hit for power. He wasn't overmatched, and he was even up at Double-A for like a week at the end of the season. And he, I think this is a guy who, had he had a normal 2020, not that anybody did, he might even be further along. So, I mean, considering how young he is and how little experience he has, he's impressive. I mean, I think the question in the long run is really going to be, what position is he? I think most guys project him more at third base and shortstop.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of split time between more positions, played more third base as of late. But, I think he has a chance to be a solid third baseman and a, really nice middle of the order bat.
I think we all like to hear that as well. Now, Jim, what do you have coming up? What can we plug for you, and where can our listeners follow you?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It seems like we're doing well. It feels like we're doing all draft, but we're also covering the minor leagues right now. And just this last week, we updated our top 100 prospects list. I know Orioles fans felt like we should have moved Gunnar Henderson up more, although it was more making major moves and than tweaking it, and he'll continue to rise. So that's out at MLBpipeline.com, MLB.com. We expanded our draft list to 200, so our prospects reports go 200 deep now. We rearranged that order. We had a new mock draft, and from now until the draft, we'll have a new mock draft every week. All the stuff's at MLB.com. I tweet about a lot of the stuff we cover at my account, which is at Jim Callis MLB. There's also the MLB Pipeline account. And one thing where I will always shamelessly plug this is like the nice thing is all our stuff's free. All our scouting reports, all our videos, all our stories, none of it's behind a paywall. So it's all available to everybody, and we'll continue to work on our minor league lists and draft lists, leading up to the futures game and the draft, which is about 7 weeks away.
All excellent stuff, Jim. Thank you so much for joining us on the Bat Around today. We will definitely talk to you as we get closer to the draft again. Until then, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you too. Take care, and anytime. Thanks a lot.
All right, see you.
That was Jim Callis from MLB Pipeline and MLB.com joining us to give us a little bit of a draft preview. Very interesting to hear that Jackson Holliday has kind of burst on the scene, that Jacob Berry could be, just because of his offensive prowess, could be a number one pick, and that Drew Jones is basically the consensus number one talent in this draft. Zach, if you were drafting right now, knowing the Orioles' brain trust, who do you think they take number one overall?
It's a great question. It's so tough because we haven't seen them take high schoolers before. And we've only seen them take college bats for the most part at the top of the draft. But the fact that they did take Gunnar Henderson so high and that he was someone who went in the second round for them, and I believe in like the 60th pick, 40th pick, somewhere around that area.
He was their second round pick. He was their first pick in the second round.
Okay, so what number was that? It was
like
in the 40,
like
40s.
41,
yeah.
I think.
So, I mean, they've taken high school bats somewhat high. So I'm not going to say that a high school bat is off the table for them. I think Drew Jones is going to be the guy. I do. Brooks Lee looks like such an Orioles pick, being a college infielder, and we know Mike Elias loves college infielders, and he certainly loves college outfielders too. I don't see them taking an arm. I think all of those are off the table. It's probably going to be Drew Jones or Brooks Lee for me. That would be my guess. Brooks Lee, probably a little less likely. Drew Jones, I think they're going to see him as a guy that they almost just can't pass up at that point.
Yeah, You'd be hard pressed to explain to your fan base why you took somebody other than Drew Jones, based on the hype that he's getting and the ceiling that and the probability of reaching that ceiling that we hear he has from Callis and Mayo and all these other guys. I think that if you didn't take him, you'd have some explaining to do. Now look, we were sure that the Orioles were taking Austin Martin and number 2 overall. You were shocked when they a lot of us were like, who? When they took Heston Kjerstad. And look, to this point, that has not worked out.
No, it has not. I mean, not that Austin Martin's tearing the cover off the ball either. I was very aware of Heston Kjerstad. I didn't want Heston Kjerstad at the moment. He was a guy that he really hadn't had a ton of success until that year, the COVID-shortened year, and he was probably the best player in college baseball at the time in 2020 in Arkansas. And, it's bad luck for the Orioles. That's not.
And it's bad luck for him.
Right. It's bad luck for him as well. Austin Martin, got traded last year for Jose Barrios. He's now in the Twins roster, and his OPS is like 750. He's not tearing the cover off the ball. There's certain defensive questions with Martin and where he's going to end up, and it hasn't been exactly successful for him. But, Spencer Torkelson was the best guy in that draft, and the Orioles had no chance of getting him. So I don't think the Orioles will beat themselves up about that one too much. They ran into some bad luck, but I don't think that's going to affect their draft decision this year at all. But I do think Drew Jones, Brooks Lee, probably the 2 guys they'll take the hardest look at. Maybe they'll go for a guy like Jacob Berry. I have no idea personally, but it's certainly there's still a few months. Things will change. And
Jacob Berry doesn't make sense to me simply because if we know one thing or 2 things about Mike Elias' draft process. 1, he loves college bats.
He does.
2, he loves defensive versatility.
Yeah.
And Jacob Berry gives you no defensive versatility.
He doesn't.
He gives you nothing there.
No.
Drew Jones is a guy who I want them to take. If they take Brooks Lee, I won't be upset because I think that bat plays pretty quickly.
It's just
and if they take Elijah Green, you just heard Jim Callis say he has the highest ceiling of anybody in this draft.
I think that the Orioles probably think a bit differently at the first pick than they would, the 2nd or 5th, which they've had in the past 2 previous years. They took Adley Rutschman because Adley Rutschman was far and away the best player in the draft. And I think that's probably what they'll do again. That's just my guess, is that I don't think they're going to try to save money for later rounds or take a guy who, is maybe not the consensus guy. I think this time they'll probably go with Drew Jones because he is the best player in this draft. Now, the Orioles could have someone who they think is better. I mean, if they think Brooks Lee is better, that's certainly a possibility. Jim Callis and MLB Pipeline, that's their opinion. The Orioles' opinion could be certainly different. There's always a chance of that. And if they think Brooks Lee is the best player in this draft, then they'll go ahead and take him. But I think Drew Jones, again, is probably your highest probability at this point.
As far as this rebuild goes, this is the last time you're picking number 1.
Yes.
This is the last time you're picking number 1
for a long time.
For a long, hopefully ever.
Yeah.
If things go the way Michael. Now look, when we say ever, there's like a 20-year thing on that.
Sure.
We're not talking 70 years down the line.
Well, throughout this process of sustained success is the way I'd put it.
For the foreseeable future,
yes.
This should be the last time you ever pick number 1 overall.
Yeah.
It's got to be a home run. It's got to be a home run.
Yeah.
Your pick has got to be a home run. Now, do you want a guy who you expect to get here sooner rather than later? Then you take Brooks Lee. If you want a guy who you think can be here and be a part of the middle of your order and part of your defense for 15 years, but you're willing to wait for him to get here, then you take Drew Jones.
I think they're at the point where waiting for guys to get there is not all that big of a deal anymore, if that makes sense. I think that they're at that point now where they can afford to let guys kind of simmer in the minor leagues a little bit and get better and better and better. I mean, Drew Jones, he'll probably come up at 21 years old, if not 20. So it's not like you're waiting a lot of time anyway. But I think they're at the point now where they can definitely afford that. When they took Adley Rutschman, they were not at that point. They needed immediate talent in this organization, and Rutschman was the obvious pick because he was incredibly polished, and he was a great offensive player and a great defensive player as well. And he was a guy that could excel very quickly. And we've seen him. He probably would have been up last year if it hadn't been for the COVID-shortened or the COVID-canceled minor league season in 2020. So, frankly, I think the perspective has just changed for them based on where they are in the rebuild. And I don't think you need to pick a guy who's going to be up in a year. That's just not really at the top of their importance list right now.
Right. And you have guys who you think are going to be able to fill that position.
Sure.
I'd like to think that the pick is Drew Jones, but we will certainly see.
We'll see.
As for the Orioles, the game has started. They put an out on the board on Masson. Cedric Mullins hit a ground ball up the middle off Nathan Navaldi on the first pitch. Bogarts made a nice diving play, but Mullins beat it out for an infield single. He was safe, but Masson did not get that memo, so they have him listed as out and not on base, which is not the case.
Nah, well, Apple TV wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, Apple TV would have gotten that right. Anyway, Trey Mancini is up. We're up for a break. Just want to remind you that, again, today's show is brought to you by the Live Casino and Hotel in Maryland. It's the best place to be for the playoffs and all the big coming events is the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. You can bet on every sport with 61 self-service kiosks open 24/7 and watch all the action from the best seat in the house with some huge events happening this weekend like the NBA and the NHL playoffs, the Champions League final this afternoon, the Gervonta Davis-Rolando Romero fight tonight, and the Indianapolis 500 tomorrow. So reserve your spot now in the FanDuel Sportsbook for all of these events by emailing events@sportssocialmd.com. That's events@sportssocialmd.com. We got to catch a break, and when we come back, take to Rake.
Sports fans, the wait is over. The all-new FanDuel Sportsbook is now open at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. This is your chance to win big right in your own backyard. Bet on every sport with self-service kiosks and watch all of the action from the best seat in the house. Make every moment more at the all-new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Answering Baltimore's calls for help, running in when others run away, working together toward one shared vision for a thriving city. That's your Baltimore Police. But the department needs more good people, people like you. Join a proud new generation of Baltimore Police and make an active difference in your community. Start with competitive wages and excellent benefits on day one. Join for good at bpdrecruit.org.
The biggest pro wrestling stars today and all time all have one thing in common. You've heard them on Jobbing Out.
Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks.
Thanks for having us, man. Appreciate it.
The great Kurt Angle.
Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Matt Riddle.
Yeah, man. Thanks, man.
The champ, Drew McIntyre.
Oh, thank you for having me.
The great Ron Simmons.
Damn.
Keith Lee.
Appreciate you guys having me, man.
Bill Goldberg.
My pleasure.
Charlotte.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mick Foley is with us.
This is the greatest name for a wrestling show I've ever heard.
MJF.
I'm glad you're happy I'm on this show because I'm freaking miserable.
Le champion.
Chris Jericho.
Le champion.
AJ, Aaron, Brandon, and Glenn are talking pro wrestling every week on Jobbing Out. Find it at PressBoxOnline.com/radio, iTunes, and SoundCloud.
The latest edition of Pressbox is available now. On the cover, Luke Jackson profiles Orioles catcher Adley Rutschman, diving into where his passion for baseball and for catching comes from and how he uses that passion to elevate those around him in the Orioles organization. Also inside, Bo Smolka takes a look at how the Ravens' 2021 draft picks can make progress in year two, and Glenn Clark offers a very unique tribute to former rival Mike Krzyzewski that all Maryland fans can appreciate. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Sports betting has come to Maryland, and we're ready to help you win some money. Tune in for Simply the Bets every Tuesday morning at 11:40. FanDuel Sportsbook Assistant GM Leon Twyman and VSiN's Aaron Oster join the guys every week to give you all of the info you need and offer you a few winners. And every other Thursday at 11:40, tune in for Weekend at Bookies as Andrew Stecca and Alloy Sports' Brad Kronthal help make you some money for the weekend. So come win some money with us on Simply the Bets every Tuesday and Weekend at Bookies every other Thursday. Brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. Watch at YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a wide range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Toyota to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Today's show brought to you by Simply the Bet. Sports betting has come to Maryland, and we're ready to help you win some money. Tune in for Simply the Bets every Tuesday morning at 11:40. FanDuel Sportsbook Assistant GM Leon Twyman and VSiN's Aaron Oster join the guys every week to give you all the info you need and offer you a few winners. And every Thursday at 11:40, tune in for Weekend at Bookies as Andrew Stetka and Alloy Sports' Brad Kronthal help you make some money for the weekend. So come win some money with us on Simply the Bets every Tuesday and Weekend at Bookies every other Thursday. Brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. Watch at YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline. Gonna turn back up that music just so we can let it play out here. It's beautiful.
I will tell you, I'm watching this Orioles game right now.
Mm-hmm.
Each of the first three Orioles reached base, and there's Ryan Mountcastle. Oh, he's safe.
He's gonna be safe.
Shut up. He was safe. Each of the first three Orioles reached. Cedric Mullins had the infield single. Trey Mancini reached on an error by third baseman Rafael Devers, and Anthony Santander with an opposite field single against the shift to bring home Mullins. Mountcastle just tried to ground into a double play. And actually what happened on that play, I don't think you can overturn that. It was a double play ball. Mountcastle beat it out because of a high throw at first base. And Trey Mancini never stopped running and scored from second on that play. And the Orioles now have a 2-0 lead. The Red Sox might challenge this, but it might be or maybe they aren't going to challenge it. But
he looks safe to me.
Yeah, he looks safe to me too. And I think either way, it's too close to overturn no matter what the call was. Orioles, a 2-0 lead on Nathan Eovaldi. He normally shuts them down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we should have done Take the Rake before this game started.
Look at you holding the mic over there like that.
Well,
That's a new thing. Comfortable.
We should have done Take the Rake before this game started because I do get the number one pick again this week because last week we had Mike Bordick on. He took Ryan Mountcastle 5 for 25, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 1 walk, a 200, 222, 325, 42 slash line. Zach took Adley Rutschman, 5 for 25, a triple, 5 Ks, 1 walk, 3 runs, scored a 200, 259, 285, 39 slash line. And I took Austin Hayes, 8 for 22, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, 1 walk, a 364, 391, 636, 1028 slash line. I win.
Would you like a cookie?
No, I got to get a trophy for it. So. That's back-to-back wins. I am now 4-3-1 this year. Back in first place by myself. The guy I was going to take, I had already planned on taking him.
Okay.
Cedric Mullins.
Okay.
I had already planned on taking him before this game started. He was going to be my pick because, like you said, he had the 2 hits last night, and one of them was an opposite field single, a line drive into left field. And I think that it's always a sign that Cedric is about to break out of things. The last time he got hot, it started with a line drive base hit to left field over the shortstop's head. So I think Cedric's about to break out, and they called him out.
Does this current game count for this week?
Yes. They called Mountcastle out at first base.
So I could start off with a his toe did touch.
He was out. So it's still 1-0 the Orioles, which is not insignificant because Nathan Eovaldi mushes the Orioles every freaking time out.
So I could start off this week with an automatic 1-for-1 with Tony Tater's here with that base hit.
Yeah,
I could do that.
His 226 batting average.
But that would be irresponsible if I want to win this week. So
I already know who you're taking.
Give me the God, Austin Hayes.
The God.
The God. That's my new nickname. He's not Action anymore. He's now the God, Austin Hayes.
I can't believe they're still calling him Action.
It's the worst. It's truly the worst nickname.
It's the worst nickname in baseball. Action. Really, there's nothing that rhymes. Action, Austin Hayes.
Action.
No,
I know.
He's. What is he? Austin Mays Hayes. That should be his nickname.
I like it.
Austin, not Willie Mays, Austin Hayes.
No, that's better.
Yeah, no, yeah. Anyway, so now not only do I get the first pick, and I'm taking Cedric Mullins, and Zach is taking Austin Hayes, which is to be expected, but now I'm also going to have my final thought first. And my final thought is enough is enough with bringing up guys that don't deserve to be here just to fill a roster spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I talked about this at length earlier in the show, but it bears repeating. Cody Sedlock and Denny Reyes should not be the guys potentially starting the second game of this doubleheader today. It should have been Grayson Rodriguez. And I bet that Grayson Rodriguez feels like it should have been Grayson Rodriguez because he went out last night and put together the best performance of his career. 7 innings, 2 hits, no walks, no runs, 10 Ks. Back-to-back 10 strikeout, double-digit strikeout games. His last 4 starts, he is going 23 and a third innings pitched, 12 hits, 3 runs, 38 strikeouts, 6 walks, a 1.27 ERA, 81, 87, 86, and 88 pitches.
Yeah.
The guy's ready. The only reason he's not here, there's probably two reasons. I disagree with Jim Callis. It's probably a Super 2 thing, but also they wanted him to debut at home. If the Orioles were in contention, he probably would have debuted today.
Yeah.
Maybe he would have been here at the beginning of the year if they had playoff aspirations. Cody Sedlock, former first-round pick. Nothing against the guy personally. I hope he has a good career. Didn't deserve the call today.
No.
Just didn't deserve the call today. Neither did Denny Reyes. It should have been Grayson Rodriguez. And I would like to think that the Orioles, if they haven't reached that point already, are fast approaching the point where these guys don't get to make those spot starts anymore. Because they just shouldn't. It should be the best available, and the best available is Grayson Rodriguez. It should have been him.
My final thought was going to be kind of along the same lines here. That Ryan, I'm kind of done with the Ryan McKenna experiment. I don't know. There's something about...
You've been done with him for a while.
I really have been, and I'm getting more and more tired of it. I think it's worthless to have a guy on your bench that just literally only comes in to pinch run. I just think it's a waste of a bench spot. He starts, 1 out of every 14 games? I mean, the guy basically never starts, and he only comes off the bench to play defense and pinch run.
And you know he's playing tonight.
And he's going to play today at one point because of the doubleheader. But, usually he wouldn't have because he barely ever plays. He barely ever starts because
he would have started tomorrow if there was no doubleheader today.
But frankly, the guy can't hit. You look at his OPS last year, it was 559. This year, it's 598. So an improvement, but still terrible. And you look at his batting average of 222 and his on-base percentage of 293, which is 1 point up from what it was last year. The guy just isn't a major league hitter, and I find it to be a waste. And I find that the Orioles could do a lot better with a guy, even like Robert Newstrom on your bench, because Robert Newstrom, while hold up, let me finish. Robert Newstrom is not technically a guy who can play center field. You can have Austin Hayes play center field on days that Cedric Mullins is off, so you have a backup center fielder. And Newstrom is a guy who's going to provide you a lot more off the bench bat-wise, and he's a guy that's even more expendable than a guy like Kyle Stowers is. You're not bringing up Kyle Stowers to sit on the bench, right? But I feel like with Newstrom, you can do that. That's fine because he's a more expendable guy. There's more guys that are like him, but I think Newstrom will bring you a lot more. Newstrom would bring you a lot more value off the bench than Ryan McKenna would at this point, because simply put, Ryan McKenna just cannot hit.
Well,
at the major league level,
his bat's been better this year, right?
293 on base though, still.
Yeah, I mean he's hitting 227, which is better than 4 Orioles regulars. Okay, last Sunday he hit a ball in that when the Orioles ended up winning 7-6 over the Rays in extra innings. Last Sunday he hit a fly ball in the 9th inning that last year would have been 20 rows up as a 3-run homer for the Orioles. Instead, it was called on the warning track.
Yeah. Speaking of called on the warning track.
Yeah.
JD Martinez.
So basically, this is a guy who was this close to a walk-off home run in the hardest ballpark to hit home runs out of in left field.
Okay, but I mean,
and he had a 3-homer game for the Norfolk Tides the other week, and he's always raked at AAA. Now look, I'm playing devil's advocate here. I'm not the biggest Ryan McKenna fan. I don't think he's as big a waste of space as you do. I'd be interested to see what his numbers would be if he got to play for 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I mean, we saw him play 5 days in a row or so when Austin Hayes had the hand injury. We saw McKenna come up and play every day,
he got
frankly,
a few hits.
He got a few hits, but he wasn't great. And the fact is, to me, is that I think we've seen what he can be as a major league hitter, and the fact is that
that's hard to say, man.
But he's not going to play every day ever.
He doesn't even have 300 career at bats.
Right, but he's not going to play every day ever. Let's just keep that in mind, though. He's never going to have that opportunity.
He's not going to get the opportunity unless somebody gets hurt and they don't think that one of the guys in the minors are ready. So they put him out there in say Santander and got hit by that pitch in the knee, and he was out for 3 weeks. Right. They wouldn't call up Newstrom. They might call up Stowers, but they would likely play. They would likely play him in right field every day. Maybe call up DJ Stewart, right? To be a
hope
fourth.
not.
To be a fourth. I hope not, but just for the sake of it, and McKenna would get playing time. I don't think that McKenna is ever going to be an everyday player, but can he prove to be a valuable fourth outfielder? I think that is still out there as a possibility. I'm not willing to write him off completely. I don't think he's an everyday player. I don't think he's part of the Orioles' future outfield, but I think he could be a fourth outfielder. And I think his bat has been better this year, and if he gets the opportunity, I'd like to see what he can do with it.
We'll see. Not a big fan, but we'll see. Like you said, I mean, there's not 300 at bats yet for the career, and he still has time, and he's gonna have time to prove things. So I want to see it. But the problem is when people say, "Oh, he just doesn't have the chance to play every day," I'm going, but that's never going to be his role. That's not what he's here for. He's here to come off the bench. So if he can't hit off the bench, what's his value, right? And that's my point. And I think that at some point you're going to have to say, okay, if Robert Newstrom, the defense lacks, by far in comparison to Ryan McKenna, but if he can hit the ball better and hit you 250 off the bench, then that's significantly more value than what Ryan McKenna's bringing you. And Ryan McKenna has a negative .1 more so far this year and had negative .2 last year.
Because he made a couple of errors in left field in the outfield that shouldn't have been made.
He did. And that's even more to my point. Someone said, I think it was Eric Arditi, was saying, look, this guy is here because of his defense.
We all said that.
Right. And that's a fair argument.
He's here for his defense, and he makes a big error.
Yeah,
a couple of errors.
And an avoidable error.
Yeah, and then when he came in to pinch hit and then he played center field because they put Adley into catch last Sunday, and he was the DH. They lost the DH. They put him in center field in place of Mullins because Mullins was the last out. He did not play that ball to center field off the bat of Stanton. He didn't play that well. Not Stanton. I can't remember who hit it for the Rays. I was thinking of a different game. But
I know what you're talking about.
He didn't play it well.
No.
He barely. He had to have a shoestring catch, and he misplayed that ball. If he's here for defense, then he needs to be able to play good defense every time out there. Guys, that's going to do it for us here on the Bat Around. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Thank you to our guest, Stan the Fan Charles, for bearing his illness and he said it's the worst sore throat that he's ever had. And if you've ever had a really bad sore throat, it is miserable. You can't even sleep.
That was not part of COVID for me, luckily. I did not have that symptom.
He's got COVID, and that is the worst. That's the worst part of it for him is that he's just had this awful sore throat. He said it hurts every swallow.
Wow.
So thanks to him for braving it out and sticking it out and coming on the show with us. And thank you to Jim Callis, who is always a great guest. I can't wait to talk to him again as we get closer to the draft.